Hello everybody and welcome to a very special video today. This is going to be a omnibus, as I am calling it, a collection of all of the top 10 lists I did about my favorite cards out of every hero's kit. So that is the cards that basically, none of them include the actual hero card, but basically if they are at 15 to 17 cards that show up in a hero's kit, they can make this list. I am making one giant video. You've looked at the runtime, you know how long it is. There's nothing new here if you've seen them, but if you just want to vibe for 4 hours, I think that's how long the video is. If you just want to do that, I got that video for you. So without further ado, welcome to the list. And we are starting right now with the most recent wave, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. wave, aka Wave 9. And I am recording this the weekend, or the Monday following the release of Winter Soldier and Falcon. So it's entirely possible that any cards out of their kit that fall onto this list might be a slot or two difference. Maybe they're not as good as I thought they were, or I realize in the future that I love them more than I talked about here. But either way, let's get into it. And pretty simple rules here. It just has to be a part of the hero kit. I have not included any heroes on this list. In fact, as I've preemptively looked through this with multiple waves, I don't know that a hero is going to necessarily be on the list, only because I think it's going to take an awful lot for a hero to be in the top 10 of all the hero cards for the wave. But let's not waste any more time. I've already wasted a lot of time explaining this. Let's get into my number 10, which is T'Challa. I think he's the only ally on this list today. And he is a 4-cost ally with 2 thwart, 2 attack, 3 health, and the Genius in Wakanda trait. He has a hero response of, after T'Challa uses a basic power, resolve the special ability on 1 Black Panther upgrade you control. And I really like this because while I have had a lot of success with Shuri's attack and thwart events that do the same thing, that they resolve a special ability on one of your cards, I've just found that when you play T'Challa, he comes down, maybe you give him some extra health, maybe you are healing him in some way throughout the course of the scenario, depending on what aspect you're in. But just being able to just make a thwart and maybe deal the damage, or whatever the special ability that you happen to have in play, being able to get that multiple times and have it not be restricted to, I have this card in my hand, I need to empty my hand so that I can draw more cards. Obviously he is expensive, which is why he's also my 10. He's not the best card in this list by far, but I think that in terms of just like what he's capable of doing, I've grown a lot of appreciation for him. And just being able to have him come and basically do what Shuri's doing, especially on the first turn. It's an awful lot to ask for, but if you're able to go grab one of her tech, put it into play, use your hand to play T'Challa, then you've already exhausted Shuri on her alter ego side to do that, but now you have the ability to still not miss a beat, still make some kind of progress. Generally, his 2 thwart is enough to take the main scheme down to 0 in most scenarios. Sometimes it's a little more than you would need, but at the same time, just being able to strategically say, okay, or I guess on the flip side, you know that it's only one scheme, so you go grab the upgrade that removes a threat from something, and T'Challa attacks. Like, he's versatile enough that I think that he is just a card that I am growing more and more appreciation for, and that's why he's on the list. Moving to my number 9, we are going to be talking about Spray Fire out of the Nick Fury kit. It is a 3-cost event, attack, hero action, attack. Choose a player, deal 3 damage to the villain, and each minion engaged with that player, this attack gains ranged. And what really pushed this into the list was this attack gains ranged. Being able to combo this with Sharpshooter to bump up the amount of damage to 4, maybe 5 in most situations, and really get a wonderful use out of that has been such a strong event that wipes the table in those moments when I need it the most. In other cases where you're still using Sharpshooter, the Sharpshooter just sticks around, but even if all you're doing is dealing 3 damage, maybe 4 damage to the villain, and a minion engaged with a player, maybe yourself, that's generally enough to open up the way to get more damage through. This is hurt slightly by the fact that if you have guard, you're only dealing damage to the minion, and the villain gets away with it. But at the same time, those those kind of things are kind of fewer and far between. I don't want to look at corner cases to be the deciding factor on, what cards I do and do not enjoy, but just every time I've played Spray Fire, probably the 6 or 7 times where it's, and I'd say probably half of those times with Sharpshooter, it's done a lot of really good work, and I just feel like in terms of what Nick Fury has going for him, this is like just one of my favorite cards, and it has worked out so wonderfully. Next up, we have a new card at my number 8, and that is Arm Block from the Winter Soldier pack, and it is a 1-cost event, defense and attack traded, with the hero interrupt of attack defense. When an enemy attacks, deal 3 damage to it if you exhausted Cybernetic Arm, which is his upgrade that generates a wild resource. To pay for this event, prevent all damage from that attack. Now, the secret text here is that if you do use the Cybernetic Arm, you're also dealing 4 damage. That's generally enough to take out a minion pretty easily, which also means that I imagine that he's going to work very well in a Change of Fortunes archetype. I have not gone down that route yet, but in terms of just what it does on its surface, even if all you're doing is dealing 3 damage, that's still pretty good. If you're preventing all the damage and dealing 4, I think that is the place where you want this card to be. And it's so easy to get that off. Like in a different world where you were talking about a different hero that needed their upgrade of choice to do something, and it's not as reliable, you're not guaranteed to have it because it's not what the entire kit is built around, then those kind of cards do go down in value. But Arm Block has the advantage of the Cybernetic Arm is something that you should pretty much always have in play. If not, then it's just a simple trip to Alter Ego to grab it. You are ruining the tempo a little bit there, but at the same time, yeah, this card in the 4, maybe 5 games I've played with Bucky now, because I went wild with Bucky over the weekend. This card has always just been one where I'm excited to play it because it means that it's handling a minion, or I guess even the villain, but it's handling a minion which is also going off his ability, removing threat from a scheme. This has always done dividends, and I've just been impressed with it every time. I didn't think too highly of it originally, but it has risen up in my evaluation of Bucky's cards. Speaking of Bucky's cards, let's get into my number 7, which is Safe House number 30. It is a 1-cost support, location shield. It has an alter ego action of exhaust Safe House number 30. Search the encounter deck for a minion and put it into play. Engage with you, shuffle, then draw 1 card. What I like about this is minion summoning, which is feeding into what Bucky wants to do. He wants to defeat enemies, remove threat from schemes. And this allows you to get a minion into play at a point when you are pretty safe. Like you either go, we're going to put a minion into play, maybe they've got low, maybe they've got 0 scheming, so you can just kind of stay in alter ego. You're not going to get ruined by that. You can be in alter ego, bring in a quick strike minion. That's the classic example. Bring in a quick strike minion, avoid the quick strike, flip up, and then just take it out. Either way, you're drawing a card. This is getting you some extra card advantage, while also it's searching the encounter deck. So you get to pick the minion you're going to grab. Maybe you're going to grab a minion that you know somebody else at the table would just fold to. In the hypothetical where you're playing with Valkyrie, you can just go grab Enchantress. You can put all the bad Enchantress stuff on yourself. I don't know why you would do that, but that's enough that it just kind of puts Valkyrie completely into her place. And so if you can do that and basically just improve your chances by having Bucky handle it, in a let me handle this kind of strategy. But either way, that's all pie in the sky stuff. At the end of the day, I just think this is a really cool design space. I think it's really unique, and just the chance to go grab a minion I just think is so interesting, especially just to play into what he's trying to do. And yeah, I think I've only used this in 2 games, but obviously in those games it gets multiple uses. And it's always just been one where it's fun to sequence your turn and what am I going to do with the safe house? And yeah, it's just been a good time so far. And this is one that I could see going up on the list. Not sure yet. Moving on to my number 6, we're looking at Eye Patch Camera out of the Nick Fury pack. I think this is going to be it for Nick Fury. I don't remember precisely. It is a 2-cost upgrade, preparation tech traded, and here interrupt when any amount of threat would be placed on the main scheme. Discard Eye Patch Camera, place up to 3 of that threat onto your suit form, upgrade instead. So what I like about this is very akin to counterintelligence, but it's in a way that is pushing itself into what Nick Fury is already doing. And that's putting threat onto his suit, which on one side just allows you to be in hero form, but have enemies scheme, and you get to take some of that threat and put it onto the suit, as long as the suit does not have. I think the suit's ability itself can get you up to a max of 6. Obviously, there are other cards like this one that are going to allow you to go beyond that, but then you can turn that threat in, I think it's lumps of 3 into damage when you make your attack event. So this just helps you to make your attacks even stronger. You are slowing down the threat being added to the main scheme, or I guess any scheme really. Oh no, it's the main scheme, sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. We don't normally add too much threat to side schemes after they've already been in play. Either way, you are pushing forward your game plan. You're turning that threat into damage later, or other things like his watch, I think, makes genius resources, and you just remove threat from the suit. Either way, this is just a key component. It's maybe not the most flashy card, but I found that it just adds so much consistency to what Nick Fury is doing that I'm always happy to have it, and it is just. Yeah, I loved counterintelligence before. This is an upgrade to counterintelligence. It's got preparation, so it interacts with all the preparation stuff. That's been such a great boon this wave. It's just what preparations were able to do. And yeah, overall, I really like this card, and that's why it makes my top 10. Moving on to my top 5, we are going to be talking about a card that I think maybe I alone like. I feel like a lot of people don't find this to be as fun as I do. But I guess that kind of shows off player personality, player play style, and that is Smooth as Silk, which is a 0-cost event out of the Silk pack. It is a hero action. Choose an enemy or scheme in play. Discard cards from the top of the encounter deck until a card with the same encounter set as the chosen card is discarded. Tuck that card under Silk, which means that it's just under it. It's face up. You get to reference it for whatever uses you need. And what I'm impressed by this the most is generally. Well, first of all, there's always a scheme in play that is aligned with the villain. But generally, there's a lot of scenarios where at least one minion is in play at the beginning of the game. And this just allows you to set the tempo for what you're going to be doing. You get to make sure that all of those upgrades that care about the encounter set, they've got at least one in the chamber. They're going to be able to do it at least once. Because so often, so many of Silk's cards are going to be discarding cards that are tucked under her to do something. I guess additionally, that also means that you have a card under her that you can then, when you go to Alter Ego form, you can discard to draw 2 cards. It does add to that. I think that might be the last option that I would be doing when I'm looking at my decision tree here. But just being able to say, hey, we're going to be able to turn on things like eidetic memory so that we can swap out this card I'll be grabbing with something else is good. Being able to turn on the upgrades is also great. I think this is one of those cards that it's not immensely impressive, but I think that it is enabling Silk to be able to do what she's looking to do on the first turn, which there are a lot of heroes where what you'd like to be doing on the first turn is not always readily apparent. It's not always something that is you can always turn on. You can always have it active the entire game. And Smooth as Silk maybe isn't a card that I'm hard mulliganing for, but if I have it, I'm going to go, okay, what options do I have with this? And that's going to be a card that I'm going to, in my mulligan, probably very strongly want to sell myself on to try to figure out, I think this card is better than any other card I could see. And that's not always the case. You have to go scenario by scenario, but in terms of the times when I've played Smooth as Silk, it has always benefited me far more than I think. Like when this card was previewed, I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. But the more I play with it, the more I realize just how much it's enabling what I want to do and how much fun that I generally have because Silk is doing what she's meant to be doing. Moving on to my number 4, we have the Iliad out of Maria Hill's pack. And this is a 6-cost upgrade, shield and vehicle traded with 3 uses, mission counters. Action, exhaust the Iliad and remove 1 mission counter from it. Choose to either deal 5 damage to an enemy, remove 4 threat from a scheme, or heal 3 damage from an identity. And part of Maria Hill's gimmick is that she is going to be able to move counters from other shield supports onto... You can basically move a counter from one shield support to another one. So that means that the Iliad, while probably not the best of the 6-cost supports that she comes with in her actual deck, I think this is in terms of the consistency, like this is always going to be a part of your game when you play Maria Hill. This is a known quantity. This is something you're going to have. I think this is just such a great use of, find other shield supports, throw the counters onto here. Maybe you get so much of Maria Hill is built around the idea that you have certain shield supports that are just there to provide their counters. I think that there is a more interesting Maria Hill deck where you have your one support that you care about, but the other supports that are in play, you also do want to use them. It's just if they have 3 counters, maybe 2 of them are going to go to the Iliad, and one of them is just there to do its thing. Either way, I think the Iliad is just such a fun card because it's like Venom's multi-gun or multi-rifle. I don't remember what it's called. Either way, it just has so many options, and it has always gotten me out of tough situations. It takes out a big enemy. It just gives me some breathing room with the threat on the main scheme, or it especially in multiplayer, helps another hero out by putting them in a situation where an attack is not going to defeat them. Maria Hill is kind of squishy. I think she only has 9 health. Being able to just recover a third of that is great. Maybe she has 10 health. I don't remember off the top of my head. But I will say, the heal damage option is maybe the one that I use the least. But dealing 5 damage and removing 4 threat is just so great. I will say, this is a card that never leaves play. If you're playing Maria Hill, this is never leaving play. It comes into play, it doesn't go anywhere. But in a situation where you might lose it, losing it right before you shuffle up the deck is not the worst thing in the world, because then I think you just go to Ultra Ego, you just go grab it again. Either way, I love this card, and that's why it has made it into my number 4 slot. Moving into my number 3, we have Falcon's card Red Wing, which is I guess this is the other ally. I forgot about that. So this is a 2-cost ally, 1 thwart, 1 attack, 2 health, with the Aerial, Avenger, and Bird trait, and it has a hero action of Exhaust Red Wing, return him to your hand, and discard the top card of the encounter deck, which Falcon can see with his ability, his static ability. Choose to either deal X damage to an enemy or remove X threat from a scheme. X is the number of icons, which is star or boost, in the discarded card's boost area. I don't know that I properly processed how good this card is when I first saw it. In fact, I probably know that I absolutely did not process how good this was. And unlike in the MCU, he is an actual bird, which is cool. I think he's a red-tailed hawk for all the Animorph fans out there. With the hero action, Exhaust Red Wing, return him to your hand and discard the top card of the encounter deck. Choose to either deal X damage to an enemy or remove X damage from a scheme, where X is the number of star and boost icons in the discarded card's boost area. So exhaust him, return him to your hand, discard the top card of the encounter deck, and then you get the choice of either dealing damage or removing threat. I like this. I like that it is one that comes down. It can immediately just be 1, 2, 3 damage, possibly more than that because you are counting the stars. And I guess I can't think of a card that has 3 boost icons and then also has a boost ability. That seems pretty heavy-handed, but that also does bring up the amount of what you're going to be doing, the amount of the effect, because you're going to hit less zeros, you're going to hit more, 1s and 2s and 3s, and so this actually seems pretty good. Hard to say necessarily. Maybe he's going to have some kind of way to up the amount of boost icons on something somewhere in his kit, but let's see here. And then we've got Falcon, okay. Because Falcon can, 1, see the top card of his deck, but also when you play an aerial card, you can discard the top card of the encounter deck. So the plan here is to play out Red Wing. If we don't like the top card, if it's just not going to be very promising, you ditch it. You have Red Wing, then exhaust, return to your hand, and that next card that's in play, you just take its icons and do something. Then you look at the top card. Is it promising? If not, you play out Red Wing, you ditch it again, or you play out Red Wing and you keep it. But this change just goes on and on. You can basically look at the top card and say, is this going to help me to deal damage or remove threat with Red Wing? If not, then you're just turning the cards in your hand, especially if you have out Falcon's Flock, I think is the name of the card, that generates a resource for an aerial card. Like, Red Wing by itself can just get played 2 or 3 times in a turn, and just changed the way the table looks. And yeah, I did not give this card enough credit. It is incredible in so many ways. That it just adds consistency to what Falcon is trying to do. And the other thing is that if you don't care about doing that little combo, and all you want to do is just, you see something very scary on the top that's got 3 icons on it, and you just don't want that to be your boost, you just return Redwing. I don't even know that Redwing is a card that I attack or thwart with, because it's almost more promising to just return it to your hand, and then you have an extra resource. Or actually, the one thing that I did before I figured out all this was I returned it to my hand, to just have that extra resource in my hand. I did whatever I did, but then I played out Spectrum, which is a new leadership ally, and because he has a wild resource on him, you then get all the boost that she has. That's kind of a silly way to do it, and it is an option that you have. If you're in leadership and you have Spectrum, you can certainly go down that route. But like, just Redwing is just not an ally. He's just like this strange subtype of a card that all it does is just repeatedly deal damage, remove threat, and it's just awesome, and I love it for that. And yeah, just overall, totally underrated, this card. It is great. I love it. Next up, we have my number 2, which is another Falcon card, Battlefield Awareness. It's a 2-cost upgrade, aerial skill trait, and here interrupt of when Falcon uses a basic power, exhaust Battlefield Awareness and discard the top card of the encounter deck, which once again, we know what it is. While we're in hero form, Falcon gets +1 to that power for this use for each icon in that discarded card's boost area. We will one day get to Probability Field out of the Domino pack, but this is basically possibly a fixed version of Probability Field, because you have to exhaust it. And it also doesn't help you in your alter ego form, but it basically is Probability Field for the purposes of what we're trying to do here, because you're probably only going to get one activation. If you happen to ready back up with Falcon, whatever, you already got the boost here. You avoided a boost effect by getting rid of a star card. I will hard mulligan for this card because it just makes the game more consistent. It makes Falcon better, and this is repeatable. You just get to exhaust it every turn and just do something awesome. And yeah, it's just, I could not celebrate it more. It is a card that I don't even know that I saw it in the previous season. I think it was previewed by a creator. But yeah, this is just an incredible card, and it is definitely one that I absolutely love from this wave. And on to my number 1, which is out of the Silk pack, and that is Eidetic Memory. A 1-cost upgrade superpower. Interrupt when you would reveal a card from the same encounter set as a card tucked under your identity. Exhaust Eidetic Memory, swap those cards. Reveal the card that had been tucked under Silk instead. The way that I've used this the most is to basically take scary minions and turn them into less scary minions. You can also take scary minions or side schemes that would just completely sidewind you and just turn them into something less scary. Additionally, being able to have a way to, there are just some minions. I guess there's plenty of card types, whether it be a treachery or whatnot. Like, there are just cards like the one I think about the most is Monster out of Eugen Formula. She's not fun. You just want to get rid of her, and just turning her into a side scheme that you can handle or a minion that you can handle is so much better than having to deal with her. And this is just such a fun way to use the cards tucked under here, because the thing is, you're also not losing access to that encounter set. You still have it. You've just now taken a card that you don't want to see in the deck and in your encounter stack, and just turn it into something you're not scared of. And it's hard to articulate, because it's just like, this is a good card. It's hard to articulate just how good it is without just repeating myself, because I feel like I've already repeated myself a bunch. But yeah, it turns into this way of just making Silk so much more consistent. It's the same thing I was saying about Battlefield Awareness with Falcon. It's just, it takes away some of the stress of the game and just allows you to play with the encounter deck in a way that other heroes just can't. We are continuing the series where I talk about my favorite cards out of each wave's hero kits by moving on to the Age of Apocalypse wave, aka Wave 8, to talk about, well, right up there, right on the tin. It says right what it is. My favorite cards out of the hero kits. As a reminder, these are the cards that are coming actually with the little hero profile at the bottom. Obviously, there are plenty of aspect cards in these waves that are great. And as a rule of thumb, I just don't have any hero cards. I feel like it would take a lot for the hero cards themselves to break through to the top 10. But either way, let's not waste any time. Let's get into my top 10 because I have some opinions about this wave. There are some high highs and there are some low lows. So right off the bat, I'm going to include a kind of tie here. Magneto's cards, Wrapped in Metal and Magnetic Missile, which work as kind of a mini combo. Wrapped in Metal is a 2-cost upgrade. It is magnetic traded, and it can only be used in hero form. Attached to a non-elite minion, attached minion cannot activate. Treat its printed text box as blank. So that's already good because you can take non-elite minions and just take the things about them that are the most irritating, such as like guard or patrol, or maybe they just have an ability that is hard to mess with. Like I think Mystique is elite, but like that kind of an ability where it's just like, oh, this is obnoxious to deal with. Oh, I guess another good example would probably be Loki. Loki is very famous for not being elite, and just being able to make it so that defeating him is just super simple is great. The one thing this does hurt is victory disappears. I feel like victory is mainly on things that are elite, but maybe I'm completely wrong about that. Either way, fine enough card. But then when you combine it with Magnetic Missile, which is a 1-cost event, magnetic superpower, with the hero action of discard a minion with Wrapped in Metal attached, deal 5 damage to an enemy, and stun it. This is just a cool combo. It's in his hero kit. It makes it into my top 10 because of that. I think these two pieces separately would probably not make it in. But just this combo that's built into his kit that is very thematic. You wrap something in metal and then you throw it at an enemy. You know, for one, you are using up a lot of resources. But a cost of 1 to deal 5 damage to an enemy is already good. So stun is also good. Obviously, it comes with a lot of caveats. There's hoops to jump through. You got to have a minion out. They have to not be elite. You have to get Wrapped in Metal onto them. Then you can magnetic missile them. Either way, you do have Wrapped in Metal to basically make it so that minion isn't doing anything. And then you can just do Magnetic Missile when it's convenient. But either way, I think that just having a combo in your hero kit is already cool enough. And yeah, these two cards come together and they really impress me. And whenever I'm playing Magneto, that moment when I get to do Wrapped in Metal Magnetic Missile is always a fun one, and it's always worth talking about. Next up, we have my number 9, which is Jubilee's Coat. A 2-cost upgrade, item traded, with the text of Jubilee gets +1 thwart, and a hero response of after you play a thwart event, exhaust Jubilee's Coat and choose a scheme. Remove 1 threat from that scheme for each different resource type used to pay for this event. Jubilee very much cares about using as many different resource types as you can to do stuff. This just adds to it. Not only do you just make Jubilee better at thwarting, but then this has just been such a difference maker. You play out of the thwart event, you get to take down maybe the main scheme, but then you also get to hit a separate scheme for 2, 3. If your thwart event costs 4, I think you've probably overpaid for that. But either way, it sort of acts as its own version of Hone Technique. It takes your thwart events, the more expensive they are, the more options that Jubilee's Coat can do more with that. It's not as good as Hone Technique. Please don't get me wrong there. But like just in general, this has been very impressive because it can allow you to hit 2 different schemes or just really hit one scheme really hard. And it has changed the tide of a scenario where I'm about to lose, but then I just wipe 7 threat from the main scheme, and that buys me turns. In multiplayer, it may not buy you as many turns, but still overall, it takes a situation where you are potentially going to lose and at least buys you time, which is sometimes all you need. Like, we have plenty of stories when we think back on it where a bad villain phase meant that a game you were supposed to win, you just lose on the spot because they thwart for 4 and then suddenly they get a advance and they thwart again and you're just like, oh, how did this happen? This does the exact same thing, but in reverse. It takes a turn that you this is my last chance, and suddenly turns it into I drew the thwart event I needed to make it so that I just have that extra turn that I need to stabilize and get this game over with. And for that, I just love it. It's a great card for Jubilee, and it does great things. Moving on to my number 8, it is Snow Clone out of the Iceman pack. It is a 2-cost ally with no thwart. It cannot thwart. It has a little dash through it. And then 2 attack and 2 health. It is an Ice and X-Men traded. And the X-Men trade is very important because you can use Utopia with it, both coming in and as a thing to ready it back up. And it has the text of cannot have upgrades attached, which is a kind of a setback. And then its star ability based on its 2 attack is Snow Clone takes -1 consequential damage after it attacks if an enemy has a frostbite attached. This is, I think, is great. Just being able to consistently deal 2 damage. You have Iceman defend, although actually no, defend wouldn't work. You have Iceman attack an enemy, you put the frostbite onto it, and then Snow Clone can just come in and make free attacks against it. There are 2 of them, so they work very well together, just dealing 4 damage to things you've already put a frostbite counter onto. Or maybe you play an event that puts frostbite counters onto things, or the frostbite upgrades onto things. This is low on my list because it's not the most consistent card. It's not the best. But in terms of just like what it's capable of doing, I've always enjoyed it. It has been one of my favorite cards in the wave since Iceman came out. It was very quickly became my favorite Iceman card, and that is why it is on the list. I think that's also telling the fact that Iceman does not place any higher on this list. Like I said, it combos with Utopia, both when this is coming in, and also just you can get those free consequential damage, those attacks that don't have any consequential damage. You can repeat them by just playing another X-Men. You ready up the Snow Clone, it makes another attack for 2. Like, it is better than it looks like. And I'm just so happy that it exists because it is a shining light in the Iceman pack that, for the most part, Iceman's not a bad hero. He just has a lot of meh cards, and this is just the creme de la creme for me. Maybe it's not your favorite Iceman card, but it's definitely my favorite Iceman card. Moving on to my number 7, which is Magneto's Armor, a 2-cost upgrade out of the Magneto pack. Guess that's a surprise. It has the armor and magnetic traits, and it has a response of after you use your magnetic pull ability, if you discarded at least one of the following resource icons. Mental, Magneto gets +1 thwart until the end of the round. Physical, Magneto gets +1 attack this round. And energy, Magneto gets +1 defense this round. So obviously if you hit something that has multiple of those resource types, I don't think that he has that in his deck. Oh no, his magnetic pull, I believe, has 2 different things on it. But either way, it just means that when you use Magneto's magnetic pull ability, which reads, action, discard cards from the top of your deck until a magnetic card is discarded, add that card to your hand. So I guess the part of this I was overlooking is the fact that you can discard multiple cards. So you could potentially hit multiple of these icons. But for Magneto, it just means consistency. Once per round, he's able to get a magnetic card. But the armor then turns it into this boost that, it falls low on the list because it's not consistent. There are probably ways to build a Magneto deck. This is very consistent. You can always get the attribute buff you need. But for me, it's always been one where it's just the chaos of it. The fact that it might help you. It might give you that extra attack. Makes for a good story. Sometimes you just do it and you're just like, oh, I guess I have an extra thwart. Does that change anything? Should I be using an attack event instead of a thwart event? Usually if your back's against the wall, you probably don't want to do that. But either way, this is a story maker. Story maker cards are always going to rate highly for me. Cards that add some consistency, but yet also some variance. That's kind of a misnomer, paradox there. But I enjoy this card. I think it's just fun to play with, and something like Magneto's Cape definitely ranks highly amongst his pack. I put this over that. I'll even put that over the combination of Wrapped in Metal and Magnetic Missile. This is just such a fun Magneto card for me, and it has always made just playing Magneto that much more fun. Next up, we have my number 6, which is Teleport Drop out of the Nightcrawler pack. This is a 2-cost event, attack superpower with the hero action of discard a copy of BAMP from an enemy, deal 8 damage to that enemy, and stun it. So 2 cost to deal 8 damage is already good enough. The BAMPs are their own thing. They are just upgrades that you attach to things, and then Nightcrawler's entire kit revolves around what you're doing with those BAMPs. But just being able to deal 8 damage is already good enough. Being able to stun an enemy. Most of the time, I'm going to be trying to do teleport drop on the villain to stun them. But sometimes you do have just scary minions that you just need to get rid of. You probably aren't going to stun them because the 8 damage is probably going to defeat them. But either way, this is just thematically such a fun card. It is, once again, it's a story maker. You remember that time when you teleport dropped the villain and just stopped them in their place. This wipes out half of a level or half of a stage of a villain in standard. The things you can, like the first turn, just teleport drop Rhino. It's just a fun time. And yeah, I always have such a good time playing this card. And yeah, that's not too much more to it. It's just a fun card that is definitely thematic. Moving on to my number 5, which is Limbo out of the Magic pack. A 1-cost support with the Dimension trait and a response of, after the villain phase begins, exhaust Limbo, swap a card from your hand with the top card of your deck. Or it has an action of exhaust Limbo, swap a card from your hand with the top card of your deck. The important thing here is just that, one, Magic cares about the top card of her deck. I think that's pretty obvious. This also is not a hero response or hero action. You can do this in Alter Ego. But just being able to set up the top of your deck so that in the case of having her upgrades, which all care about what is the resource type on the top card of your deck, if it's wild, then they all go off. If it's a certain resource, then you get like attack, or you get defense, or you get thwarting. Whatever you need in that moment, when the villain phase begins, you can set up the top card of your deck so that it is giving you the boost that you need, or it's just swapping out and giving you a different option for what you're trying to do. It is a card that I think is hard to sometimes sell. I think it's a little bit harder to master than I think other cards are, but overall, I've always enjoyed the consistency that this card adds. And I think for a long time, it was my favorite card. Spoiler, there is a card above it on this list. But the utility of the fact that it can be used at any point, so you've already drawn your hand, you've drawn back up to your max hand size, and you're going into the villain phase, and you just need to swap a card so that you have whatever boost you need, or you just have a different option. This can even be helpful because if there is a defense card on the top of your deck, you can get that so that you can play that defense event. And yeah, just it's the kind of card that adds decision trees, and you don't necessarily realize the depth that it has until you've gotten into moments where suddenly it's giving you options that you would not have had. And that's why it ranks so highly on my list. It makes it to my number 5. Next up, we've got my number 4, which is another Nightcrawler card. It is Scout Ahead, a 1-cost event, Superpower Thwart. A hero action thwart, remove 3 threat from a scheme. You may discard a copy of BAMP from your hand to remove 3 threat from another scheme. So this is just good for in solo, or for like even in 2-player, just being able to kind of handle 2 different schemes, keep the table in check, keep everything on the level. You know, 1 for 3 at a base is not that bad. It's 2 resources to remove 3 threat from a scheme. You're already going to enjoy that. If you happen to burn another resource, removing 6 from 2 different schemes, that is the one stipulation that I think maybe I rank it highly, but it probably could be bumped down a little bit when you kind of like think about the situations where you don't have 2 schemes to hit. But I don't want to get into corner cases. Overall, this card generally just makes me feel good. I have a fun time playing it, and that's what's important. Is that at the end of the day, I'm having fun, and Scout Ahead is just one of those cards that just, it may not actually be extremely cost effective, but it just feels effective. It feels cost effective when you're playing it, and overall, I can't speak more highly of Scout Ahead. Next up, my number 3. Did I say that? I don't remember what I might have said that Scout Ahead was my number 3. I hope I said that it was my number 4. Concussive Blast is my number 3 out of the Bishop pack. It is a 3-cost event, attack superpower, hero action, deal 6 damage to an enemy if you paid for this event with a resource card, ready Bishop. So first off the bat, it is a little expensive. 3 is rather expensive, but a lot of the big attack events are. But I think that because Bishop, he wants a lot of resources in his deck, and a lot of those resources are going to come with double resources. So you are saving, first of all, you're incentivized to use a resource card, but also you're incentivized to use a resource card because it generally saves you the amount of actual physical cards leaving your hand. And 6 damage is below the curve in terms of what you can do with 3 cost cards. But at the same time, an attack event that readies you back up is so sweet. And you are going to have resource cards in your hand. It's so wonderful. The deck that I played most recently, that I talked about a couple weeks ago, like a month ago now, that I played at Con of Heroes, this maybe wasn't the shining star of that deck, but it definitely impressed me. And yeah, just I don't know that I realized how good an attack event that readies your hero can be, and this is the one that brought that to my attention. Suddenly that 3 cost doesn't seem like that, because you can thwart, play this out, deal 6 damage to an enemy, ready back up, maybe thwart again, maybe attack, but overall it just, the combination of attack and ready is so strong. And like I said, the whole the whole caveat of you need to play with a resource card is not a concern to Bishop. He has resource cards. You're a heavy resource card deck for the most part. If you're not, then you're playing a different version of Bishop, and there's nothing wrong with that, but just he likes resource cards so much that you are going to make the push into double digits if possible. And yeah, I just love Concussive Blast. My number 2 for the wave is probably a little controversial and a little unconventional, but that is Magic's card Scrying. It is a 0 cost event spell with the action of look at the top 3 cards of your deck, draw 1, discard 1, and put 1 back on top of your deck. The amount of work this does to just set you up, the amount of times where one of the cards in my hand or on the top of my deck was a stepping disc, so I can discard another Magic card that I might go grab with stepping disc, or just have stepping disc in hand to go grab something else in the future, is just great. The ability to set up the top of your deck, which is something that Magic very much cares about, is also great. Yeah, I've had so much success with this card, and it's the kind of card similar to how I talked about Smooth as Silk last week, where it helps Magic do what she's trying to do in a way that might not necessarily read as powerful or as potent right on the tin, but once you get into it, you just realize, like, oh my gosh, this is doing so much work for me at the cost of 0. And it's just making my games more consistent. It is an action, so you can do it in Alter Ego, which means you have more cards to be assessing what's important to you with. It allows you to set up the top of your deck so that when you do change to Alter Ego, when you change to Hero form, you can use her ability to its most potent. Yeah, just overall, I love this card. I love what it does, and it has definitely risen in the ranks for me over the last year. And lastly, talking about my number 1 card out of the hero packs of Wave 8, we have Bishop's Uniform, a 2-cost upgrade, item temporal traded, with the response of after you resolve Bishop's energy absorption ability, exhaust Bishop's Uniform. Heal 1 damage from Bishop for each resource card in your hand. So Bishop's energy absorption ability is when he gets dealt damage, you discard the top X cards of your deck where equal to the damage, and any resource cards that were put into the discard pile this way get put into your hand. So this often means that you can heal back more damage than you just took, because you already had resource cards in your hand, then you discarded 2 more off the top, and suddenly that 4 damage you took, you heal 5. It's just, this is such an incredible card. And he has other cards like his rifle that do a similar thing but for damage. That's a good card, but Bishop's Uniform makes it so that you don't have to change to Alter Ego. You can just stay in hero form, because again, you are gaining back more health than you lost, and that's amazing. And yeah, this is just the best card in Bishop's pack for me. I think I've enjoyed other cards more, but once I started playing that Bishop deck that I talked about a couple spots ago, and I really began to understand the true power of Bishop's Uniform, its stock rose for me so much, and it's just such a great card. And like I said, it just makes it so that there's potentially chances that you never have to go to Alter Ego, because you never get below like half health. You just sit at full health all the time and just do your thing, and it's just so great. And yeah, I just love it. Welcome to another top 10 list. This week we are continuing our series where we are talking about my favorite cards out of every hero kit, and we will be looking at Wave 7, aka the next evolution, the X-Force Wave. And yeah, this one I was actually surprised how I'm not necessarily looking to put at least 1 card from every hero kit into this, but this was very biased into particular directions. And while every hero was represented here, it was definitely a stretch to fill out, I would say, the top, or to fill out the final like 3 slots to really kind of figure out where we were sitting. So let's get into it right now with my number 10 coming out of the Angel pack. That is Aerial Agility, which is a 1-cost event, aerial defense traded with the hero interrupt of when an enemy attacks you, if you are Angel, ignore each boost icon and each boost ability on that for this attack. And if you are Archangel, give your hero a tough status and you gain Retaliate 1 for this attack. Both of these have very potent abilities to just blank an attack, mostly probably from the villain, unless there is a very, very scary minion out there. There are some minions that, attack for 3. And, in Angel form, you're not going to blank the boost abilities, are you? But either way, I guess they could have villainous. This card does rank low because I do think this is a very fun card, but I have found more and more that it just... if I'm not an Archangel, I don't play it. So often, it's like the appealing part of it is just that tough status and the Retaliate 1 to just like blank the entire attack and deal a damage back at the cost of 1. It's not perfect, but it generally works out pretty well, especially if you are already in like a perfect defense build. You can just guarantee you're not going to take any damage from a defense. But I want to see more value out of the Angel side of this. I want to feel like I know exactly how much damage I'm taking because the boost ability, the boost icons and the boost ability are not even going to be a factor. But it just doesn't come up enough for me. And so that's why it probably could have been in my like top 5 6 months ago. But it has just fallen to the point where I don't value this card as much as I used to. And I feel like I've played Angel recently and it's just not hitting the same way that it used to. Moving on to my number 9, this was another one that I kind of hemmed and hawed to I don't know that I hemmed and hawed to find it, but then as it came time to sort of make the list, I realized that how low it has fallen for me. And that is the upgrade Plasma Rifle, which is a 2-cost upgrade, tech weapon traded. It is restricted, which we should expect. And a hero action of attack, exhaust Plasma Rifle, and spend an energy resource. Deal 1 damage to an enemy for each side scheme in the victory display to a maximum of 4. This attack gains ranged. Range really keeps this relevant because Sharpshooter is an option. Although I feel like this is the only thing that Cable has in his kit that has ranged naturally. So Sharpshooter is sort of like a last ditch, like your 40th card you put into the deck because you just happen to have this synergy. I love putting side schemes into the victory display. That's what Cable is really good at. He is the player side scheme guru. But I have just found recently that this is just not consistently dealing me 3+ damage as much as I kind of assumed it would. And it's still very capable of doing that. But so often, I don't know if it's just the games are moving faster or I'm just not prioritizing side schemes, player side schemes like I used to. But yeah, this just has not been it has not felt as good as it used to for me. And that's why it's kind of fallen. Once again, this probably could have been in my top 5 at some point. And it's fallen and it just never kind of redeemed itself. And that does come down to playstyle. If your playstyle is not one where you are going to be putting a lot of side schemes into the victory display, or you're just not playing against a scenario that does that, then this is going to do less and less for you. But for me, it's still a really high marks within the wave. It just does not have the same impact that it used to for me. Moving on to my number 8. This is a recent all-star for me, and that is Training Regimen out of the Psylocke pack. It is a 1-cost support. It has the training trait and hero action of Exhaust Training Regimen. Search your deck for a skill card and add it to your hand. Then shuffle. If you are in hero form, discard 1 card from your hand. So obviously this has the benefit of you using an alter ego to boost up your skills. But this is kind of a placeholder because the skills that Psylocke has access to are so good when they're good. Like when you can get your attack up, when you can get your defense up, when you can get your thwart up, it's really great. You can then discard them at some point to do a secondary effect. This just helps you to toolbox for whatever you need. The setback here is that it only looks through your deck. And I think that's fair. Not every card should look at your deck and your discard pile. But that one setback does make it so that while you can always add more skills to your deck, so this can tutor for more and more things, it does help with that consistency. It has impressed me recently, but not so much that it has cracked my top 5. But overall, I like this card. I like what it's capable of doing. I like the consistency. I like that it adds a toolbox quality to Psylocke that I wasn't valuing before. And so it's made me appreciate Psylocke more. Just not enough, like I said, not enough to really crack up into the top half of this list. But still, I think it's a card that I was sleeping on before. Please let me know if you slept on it and what you think of it now, or if you've always known that it's good. And even let me know if it's not good, if I'm just overselling it at this point. But yeah, that is my number 8. Moving on to my number 7, we're going to be talking about the zero-cost upgrade Puncture Wound out of the X23 pack. It is a condition-traded card with attached to an enemy that X23 or Honey Badger, her signature ally, has attacked this turn. Attached enemy gets -1 attack. That's already pretty good. That can blank attacks. That can really just make it so that you buy yourself an extra turn from the villain. But then it has the force response of, after the player phase begins, discard this card and deal 3 damage to the attached enemy. What I like about this is, in a situation where the math is starting to get super, like, you're right on the edge of being able to win. One, like I said, this buys you an extra attack from the villain or whatever enemy you're talking about, but then it also just deals 3 damage. X23 is already really good at doling out damage. She can ready up like at least twice a turn on average, because you care so much about Honey Badger. Honey Badger is constantly in play. That gives you a ready. Her ability naturally gives you a ready. Like, so you can take her stats and just kind of like double or triple them very easily. But Puncture Wound just does that really thematic. I think the theming here is what's strongest for me. Is it does buy you that extra turn. It does get you just a little more damage through. But also, it's that whole like anime thing where they cut the enemy, they seem fine, they start walking away from them, and then that one slash comes through and they just kind of like part ways. Like, that is what Puncture Wound makes me think of. And yeah, just for the theming alone, it topped my list and fell into my number 7. Number 6 is, I think, going to be a little controversial just because I think it's such a good card. And I think that just speaks to how much I enjoy other cards out of the wave. But Jackpot is my number 6. It is the resource out of the Domino pack that has the response of, after this card is discarded from the top of your deck, shuffle it back into your deck. And it has 1 energy, 1 mental, and 1 physical resource on it. So when you are playing with Domino, you discard this off the top of your deck. The stuff that discards cards off the top of your deck cares about the amount of resources. This is an automatic 3. You can put it on top of your deck with her ability, make it super easy to like always know that you're going to hit the jackpot, and then it just shovels right back into your deck if you wanted to. And there are times when you will choose to let it go into your discard pile because you're going to switch to Alter Ego, you're going to swap it back into your hand so that you can put it back on top next turn. That is a decision tree that you have. I think that it's great for adding that, for making it so that these kind of decisions are things you can think about. But yeah, overall, this just is such a stellar card that I don't know that I've ever used it for just its 3 resources. I probably have, especially things that have requirements on them. But at the same time, this is just such a fun card, and I love Domino and I love Jackpot. Next up, we have my number 5, Mind Scan, the 2-cost event out of the Cable pack. It is Psionic, Superpower, and Thwart traded, and it has the hero action of Thwart, remove 3 threat from a scheme, remove 1 additional threat from that scheme for each side scheme in the victory display. So while I did kind of put down Plasma Rifle for just not being enough, Mind Scan being able to take 5, maybe 6 threat off of a scheme for the cost of 2 is just great. And even if all you're doing is paying this and you're getting that 1 additional, because there's only 1 scheme in the side scheme in the victory display at this point, this is how you get those side schemes into the victory display. This is how you buy yourself turns. And the thing is, there's no upper limit to this, unlike the rifle. So that means that if somehow in multiplayer you found yourself with 6 side schemes in the victory display through the scenario or through player side schemes. This is just doing so much work. Like the non-upper limit to this means that just go wild, just do whatever you can. And the part of the game that I often fail the most at is just handling the main scheme, and this just takes all that pressure off and just makes it so that I am definitely not losing to the main scheme, at least not this turn. Moving on to my number 4, it is absolutely for uniqueness and originality and for flavor and theme and just so great. It is the 2-cost support out of the Deadpool pack, Chimichanga Truck. This support has the location trait and responsive after any identity, makes a basic recovery exhaust Chimichanga Truck, ready that identity. This is just such a great multiplayer card to put down whenever somebody heals themselves back up. Deadpool, who's gonna, with his 8 recovery, go all the way back up to a full 9 when he gets defeated and gives you the acceleration token, or it's just any hero that just needs to flip down, maybe recover, and then flip over to hero form so that they can attack, or maybe they want to get a double recovery in. They flip down to Alter Ego, they recover again, and now you've saved yourself a turn. And yeah, just I think this is such a great card. I think it's an underdog. I think a lot of people don't take it seriously, and it's so much fun. It like I said, it's on the flavor. I love that this is something that Deadpool just has in his repertoire, and that's similar to other cards that we've seen since, like Kurt's Chapel out of the Nightcrawler pack. Yeah, this is just it's great in single player, but it's even better in multiplayer because you can just help out so many people and just change the math, which I think is so much fun. Next up, we have my number 3, also out of the Deadpool pack, and that is Cable, a 3-cost ally with 1 scheme, 2 attack, and 3 health. But those, the thwart and the attack both have little stars next to them because Cable gets +1 thwart and +1 attack for each acceleration token on the main scheme to a maximum of +3/+3. And yeah, I love this ally. It takes that threat you have of, oh, you're adding too many acceleration tokens. Well, Cable just says, we're not going to worry about the acceleration tokens. In fact, now I've got 5 attack, so just equip me up, give me an extra ready. I will just take down whatever enemy you need. I can thwart amazingly. Like, obviously, this does have an upper limit, and I think it's probably safe that it has an upper limit. He shouldn't be able to just have like 7 attack or something. But yeah, this is like one of my favorite allies in the game, especially identity specific. And I love the deck I've built around it. I have a sidekick deck where it's just Cable shines there, and yeah, this is just great. And yeah, overall, it's one of my favorite cards in the game, and it's one of my favorite cards in the wave. Well, next up, we have my number 2, which is Domino's Pistols out of the Domino pack. It is a 2-cost upgrade, weapon traded with restricted. It has the hero action of attack, exhaust, Domino's Pistols, choose an enemy, and discard the top card of your deck. Deal 1 damage to that enemy for each resource icon discarded this way. This attack gains ranged. So automatically, you're just getting into the sharpshooter overlap. You're getting into what you can do with Jackpot. You get into the fact that Domino counts wild resources twice, and every card in her pack, I believe, has a wild resource on it. So 15 cards in your pack are double resources. And yeah, this is such a great card. There's 2 of them, and it creates these scenarios where suddenly Domino's Pistols basically account for all your attacks, and you can just use Domino's 3 defense to never worry about it, because you're just going to defend every turn, and you're going to use your pistols to deal 3 or 4 damage every turn. And yeah, it's just great. I love Domino for the fact that she takes these scenarios where you know what's guaranteed on the top of your deck, and you just need to decide what card in your hand or on the field are you going to use that one card you do know to do the most damage. And yeah, just overall, I loved Domino's Pistols. They rank so highly for me, but they're not my favorite card with Domino, because that is my number 1 probability field, the 2-cost upgrade with the superpower trait and the interrupt of when you use a basic power, even in Alter Ego, discard the top card of your deck, you don't exhaust, and you get +1 to that power for each resource icon discarded this way. So suddenly that 3 defense turns into a 5 defense. Well, I guess not so often because her hero form is the one that cares. But that 3 defense turns into a 4 defense. That low thwarting of 1, I believe it's 1, right? Her low thwarting of 1 suddenly turns into 2 or 3. And yeah, this doesn't exhaust. So this means that if you ready back up, you can use it again. If you just want to defend an alter ego, you can do that. This is just such a great card. It might be my favorite card in the game because it is just so powerful. But yeah, Domino is a top 5 hero for me, and Probability Field is my favorite card from the hero kits. This week we will be hitting on the top 10 hero cards coming out of Wave 6, aka Mutant Genesis. And this is a bit of a challenging list. One, because there are just more heroes. We've got the core heroes of Colossus and Shadowcat, but then we immediately have Cyclops, Phoenix, Wolverine, Storm, Gambit, and Rogue to all take into account right up there on the screen. In putting this list together, not all the heroes available in the wave are going to be represented here. There are hero cards that I enjoy out of all these heroes, but when it comes to a top 10, this is the top 10. It's a lengthy list, and not every hero is going to get represented because not every hero has a card that I think breaks the threshold of the top 10. And that even includes the fact that now that I've done a couple of these lists, just as a reminder, if I'm missing a card that could have been in my top 15, that still means that they were within the top 8% of the cards that were selectable. They were in the, and for a card not to make it, or even to fall into 8th place versus 5th place, is a thin margin. And also, this is all my own perspective. Let's not waste any more time in getting to this list and start off with my number 10, which comes out of the Wolverine pack, and that is Berserker Barrage, a 2-cost event, attack traded with the hero action of deal 4 damage to an enemy. If this attack defeats an enemy, you may take 2 damage. Repeat this process. And like I said, it's out of the Wolverine pack right there, and it's very Wolverine coded, to be fair. What I really love about this card is just how strongly it is tied to Wolverine, and the ability to kind of make your way through a whole bunch of minions is incredible. Yes, you are taking damage, but once again, because Wolverine is somebody that heals back up, especially the first time you take that 2 damage is kind of inconsequential because you're just going to regenerate back anyway. But if you want to just push yourself to the limit, you want to just take out 4 minions, you take 6 damage, you go down to 3 or less life, and you just figure it out because you are Wolverine, you are a bruiser. Maybe you're going to switch back down to Logan and get around any kind of villain attacks. But at the end of the day, this card is just so emblematic of what I think of when I think of Wolverine and his powers and his power set and everything. And yeah, it's just incredible, and I love it. And yeah, that's why it is my number 10. Moving on to number 9, we have out of the Cyclops pack, Exploit Weakness, which is a 1-cost upgrade, tactic traded, attached to an enemy, max 1 per enemy. It has the temporary trait, which means that it will fall off at the end of the phase, or will fall off at the end of the round, which is after the villain phase resolves itself. And it has the text, increase the amount of damage attached enemy takes from each attack by 1. This can, especially in a multiplayer scenario, just be a cascade. This is why Cyclops has his kit slightly built around the fact that he is going to be the first player, even when he's not the first player. He'll be the first person to act, and he will pass on any kind of priority after that. But he gets to set up these scenarios where you can just put this onto the villain, and you can just start to take all of your attack events and just dial them up by 1. The fact that this only costs 1 is great. You're using up a single card and this card to get a lot of advantage. And even in single player mode, just being able to shave off a couple extra points with the 1 or 2 events that you may be able to play after that. Your basic attack, you got your allies attacking, all that stuff matters, and it starts to compound into such a way that you find yourself dealing out excessive amounts of damage, making a huge difference. And yeah, at the end of the day, just for a character that I don't love, I have a lot of respect for Cyclops, both as a comic book character and as a hero in this game. But as a character that I don't necessarily love, this is definitely one of those cards that just impresses me every time it gets played. It makes me want to go out and play a Cyclops deck, because it means that I'm going to get to be this tactical genius and exploit weaknesses. And yeah, I love this card for that. Next up, we have out of the Mutant Genesis box, but out of Shadowcat's hero kit, we have Phased Strike, a 3-cost event with the attack and superpower traits, and hero action of deal 6 damage to an enemy. If you are in phased mass form, you may discard an attachment with the text hero action or hero response from that enemy. And yeah, this just plays into Shadowcat's ability to disrupt technology. Well, one of the things that her phasing allows it to do is it kind of just completely shuts down technology in such a way. And so this not only being one of her attack events, her strong attack event, but also has the ability to, if she's phased, play into that characteristic of like, I put my hand through a computer and the computer stops working. Like, that's just a byproduct of her powers. Dating back, I think, pretty far. I think the first time we see her go up against the Hellfire Club, this is an ability that does come up when Emma Frost goes to try to recruit her. And yeah, just it's always been something that she does. It's always this strong connection she has, and it's this like just part of her powers. And I just love it for the fact that it is a powerful attack that also just can do something that you sometimes had to pay a pretty big premium to do. You need to play with specific allies. You need to be playing in specific heroes to be able to address hero action and or hero response cards. And Shadowcat just happens to be one of those people that in her kit, she can just get around it. You don't have to worry about matching resources. You don't have to worry about exhausting a character or dealing a certain amount of damage or taking an attack from a character. You can just, like, I think Ronin, I don't remember the precise text of the universal weapon. And yeah, the universal weapon has hero action on it. So when you go up against Ronin, instead of having to shuffle it into the deck, you can just deal 6 damage to Ronin in phased form and put that universal weapon directly into the discard pile. And for that's an incredible interaction. It is very corner case, but it's something that I have to imagine that Shadowcat players happen to kind of take a little bit of pride in. It's like, oh, you have problems with Ronin? I don't have that problem with Ronin. I just mulligan hard for Phase Strike, and we wrap this all up in a little bow. Next up is my number 7, aka Blast of Wind, coming out of the Storm Pack. It is a 3-cost event, superpower traded, and it has the hero action of choose a player, deal 3 damage to the villain, and each minion engaged with that player, resolve the special ability on your weather support. So obviously we have our weather. We're going to be able to take advantage of that in whatever way possible. There's also just generally Aurora's interactions with her own weather, but this just gets to be a easy way to pretty much wipe the table of a player who's got a few minions on them. And so, in solo play, you can kind of set everything up so that you deal 3 damage to the villain, and you get to, without being an attack, put 3 damage onto the villain and all the enemies around you. It's a strong, potent attack that I really think just is underappreciated by some. I think when you think of Storm, you think so much of her weather deck, and you don't think necessarily about everything that her cards are able to do. And having seen this in similar action with Iceman, he has his attack where you deal 3 damage to each character that has the frostbite on it. You put a frostbite on something, and then you just deal a bunch of damage. This is a way that has less loopholes to jump through, but still is a good way to just dole out a bunch of damage. And yeah, is easily one of my favorite cards out of Storm for good reason. Like, it does a great job. Not to mention you get to use that special, which is very modular. You get to do one of 4 different things, and yeah, you just get to do whatever is the best thing for you, and deal out this damage. Next up, we have my number 6 coming out of the Phoenix Hero Pack, and that is Mind Control, a 4-cost upgrade, condition psionic, attached to a non-elite minion. Take control of attached minion and treat it as a controlled ally with a blank text box. Its thwart is equal to its scheme, and it takes 1 consequential damage after it thwarts or attacks. So nowadays, we've seen an awful lot of this. We have an entire side scheme that creates that pulls in a linked card that does this effect. And I think it has the same condition, that it's non-elite. I could be misremembering that, but either way, just as a card within Phoenix's pack, this is a story maker. I have used this on Sentinels so many times. They have nice high attack. They have generally they come with toughness. So if you can grab them while you haven't broken the tough status, that token is, yes, their text box will be blank, but that token is going to stay there. You're going to have the toughness. You're going to be able to get in a free attack. Some of those Sentinels start with 2 or 3 attack already. They're just these great resources to turn into, your own little controlled allies. And beyond that, beyond the classic story that I always tell of, using these on Sentinels and really taking advantage of the Sentinel program, just in general, being able to even just take out a problematic minion who happens to not be elite and use them to your own usage is just great. It has always been one of those things that, once again, it's just a story maker. It makes me excited to play Phoenix. It's one of my favorite things to do with Phoenix. It's just all of a sudden go, oh, we don't need to worry about this Master Evil because I'm just going to take control of him and use him to my own, bend him to my will. And yeah, I just love it. And it happens to be just one of my favorite cards out of Phoenix. Totally befitting of the number 6 slot. And actually, with all the accolades I've put onto it, I think that should really spell out just how much I value the top 5 and how much respect I have for them, and just how much I like playing the heroes that they're connected to. And speaking of my top 5, we have, out of the Gambit pack, Charged card. It is a 2-cost event, attack superpower, has the hero action of deal 4 damage to an enemy. For this attack, if Gambit's throw to card ability removed at least 1 counter, this attack gains ranged. 2 counters, this attack gains piercing, and 3 counters, this attack gains overkill. So also with each one of those counters you removed, that means that you're going to take that 4 damage, you're going to bump it up by 1, 2, or 3. So you have at its base, an attack for 4, for 2, that's not bad. You can have 5 damage with ranged, which is great when you're dealing with a retaliate villain or even an enemy that happens to retaliate. At 2 counters, it gains piercing and is now dealing 6 damage. That's great. You wipe off a tough super easily. At the 2 costs to deal 6 damage and remove a tough beforehand is pretty great. And then if you are dealing a total of 7 damage, not only are you ranged and piercing, but you are overkilling. And that is just great. The modular nature of this card is just so stupendous. I love it, and I love playing Gambit for this card. This is my favorite card, spoiler, favorite card out of Gambit. He has no other cards that rank above this on the list. Like I said, this list is very top heavy. But I love Gambit for just his ability to... His throw to card ability is just great, and this is what really exemplifies it. There are other cards that are in his kit that I think also do pretty good work, but Charge to Card is always going to be my favorite card out of Gambit. Next up, we have my number 4, which is Energy Transfer out of the Rogue pack. It is a 2-cost event, superpower, hero action, attach touched to a character other than Rogue and deal 2 damage to that character. Heal 2 damage from Rogue and ready her. You gain each of the attached character's traits until the end of the round. And touch is a card that cares about if it's attached to a minion, villain, ally, or hero, and gives you a range of different effects. For a minion, you get overkill. For a villain, you gain retaliate 1. When it's attached to an ally, you gain the aerial trait, and when it's attached to a hero, you gain the stalwart. And if I remember correctly, you can only attach it to other characters. Yeah, so in multiplayer is the only way you're going to be able to get it attached to a hero. Either way, 2 damage, heal 2 damage, ready Rogue back up. It's just a baseline. 2 is a little expensive, but I also do think that it's fairly balanced because this can be it can just swing the game in such a way. Not only can it just take out a minion, and I suppose at that point you've lost touch, but just dealing 2 damage to the villain, maybe break the tough off of it, but then you also get all their traits. You get to heal 2 damage, you get to ready back up, you get another activation. Rogue's already got 2 stats, so she's very well rounded, and this just pushes her over the edge and makes her into a stellar character. Gaining all the traits is also good. That's going to come down to more nuanced play. That's going to come down to more deck to deck importance. But when it's important and when it's helpful, it's very helpful. And so Energy Transfer ranks up very highly for me. I love it. I think it is such a great card. And yeah, it's very healthfully. It is very locked in as my number 4. Next up, we have my number 3 coming out of the Phoenix pack again, and that is Telekinetic Attack, a 3-cost event, attacks psionic traded. Hero action, deals 7 damage to an enemy. If you have the Unleashed trait, this deals 2 additional damage and gains overkill. So I like this just because at a baseline, 7 damage is pretty good. If you are Unleashed, 9 damage and overkill is even better. I obviously, in many ways, I kind of wish that I had overkill. That is one setback. But at the same time, this card does a great amount to put that tension in. Do you want to go to Unleashed? If you go to Unleashed, all your cards get better, including this one, which is going to allow you to deal 2 extra damage. It's going to overkill. And where that 7 damage might have just completely demolished a minion, but kind of just been too much, more damage than it has health. Now you have the ability of, if you just go over the edge, if you just unleash yourself, you are going to be able to do some incredible things. And I love it for that. And just, this is such a great card. I love it. I wish that there was more things. I wish there was more things like this that were such a tight, packed design in other heroes. And I think there's a lot of really good thematics in a lot of cards, but this one just being the whole package of, you are Phoenix, you are doing a telekinetic attack, you're dealing a bunch of damage, and if you happen to let yourself just go Unleashed, you can do more. Wouldn't it be great if you were Unleashed? I think it would be great if you were Unleashed. So just take those counters off, get some wild energy, do whatever you need to do. And yeah, this this encompasses Phoenix in such a stellar way and is exactly what I want to be doing. And the exact play pattern of, like, it would be pretty great if I was Unleashed. I think it would be, and maybe I should try it out sometime. Moving on to my number 2, we return back to the Cyclops pack with Field Commander. A 1-cost upgrade, title. You take the first turn during the player phase. When your turn is done, play proceeds in player order, starting with the first player. You do not take another turn. And then it just has the additional text of, each Cyclops upgrade attached to a minion loses the temporary keyword. So what I like about this is it's a very different card. And it's a little confusing. As a new player, this can be very confusing. So like, let me get this straight. So the first player always starts with Cyclops, and so we never change turn order? No. That's not what happens. The turn order still gets passed along. It's just, instead of always going A, B, C, D, you might have to go A, C, D, B, and just make your way around the table in a slightly different way. This allows Cyclops to set up his upgrades onto characters, and he's got a bunch of them, but just being able to take different advantages. Let's lower the amount of attack here. That way, before you even take your turn, player number 3, you don't even need to think about that minion on you because it's got -1 attack. So everything else you do is going to be like, the mental load is going to be softened by that. Hey, I put this exploit weakness over here. Everybody, let's just gang up on this person and deal a bunch of damage to them. And yeah, just overall, I think this card is, I think in a different time and place, I probably would have ranked this lower. But the more I thought about it, the more I began to grow appreciation for it and what it's doing and just how it plays so much into Scott's ability to be a tactical leader. And I think that it is a card that I was underrating for a long time. And now I realize is maybe one of the, it might be a top 10 card, a hero card in the game for me. I don't know if it's that illustrious yet, but I think that if I thought about it, it probably is a top 25 card in Marvel Champions for me. And that's saying a lot because there's a lot of really good cards. And I think I don't know that I'd be willing to say it's in the top 10 because I think of all the domino cards that could probably make the top 10. It's very top loaded. But yes, overall, Field Leader, great card, and that's why it's my number 2. And wrapping everything up today, let's talk about my number 1 card coming out of Rogue again. We have the 0-cost event, Superpower Adaptation. It is a superpower traded event. It has the hero action of, if touch is attached to a friendly character, search its owner's discard pile for an event that belongs to the same classification of that character. In parentheses, identity specific, aspect, or basic. Add that event to your hand. So this is new territory that I'm actually surprised that we haven't kind of ventured into since. You can have cards from other players' discard piles in your hand and you can play them. The fact that this is locked to an event definitely ties back its power, but I think that in general, what it's doing is so powerful. I've talked before about how Rogue and Magneto make a really strong team because he can wrap in metal and she can magnetic missile. This expands out and out even more and more. As long as it is not an event that is basically tied to the gimmick of the hero, so like the charged card that I talked about with Gambit, you're not going to be able to remove tokens, the charged tokens, so that's not going to be useful to you. But even if you're just going basic and you're doing a swinging web kick, or you are, if I understand the rules correctly, let's just say there is the attack event that Bishop has, where it deals like 6 or 7 damage, and if you use a resource card, you ready a Bishop. This allows you to allow Bishop to maybe make a defense, because you are going to go before the Bishop player, and then you take the card out of their discard pile, play it, ready up Bishop, and he's able to do his thing. That gets a little bit into the weeds in terms of stuff you can do, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. It allows you to get into the weeds on the game interactions. And I understand the criticism of Rogue, where you say that she's only really good in multiplayer. I think that for the most part, 60% of her power probably is tied into multiplayer. I think she's got a lot going for her, but unfortunately, this event really just turns into attached, touched to Gambit to get back on your own events. That's kind of boring. But when you can play in multiplayer, you can go grab stuff out of other people's discard piles and use them to your own advantage. There is so much power in that, and I think that it just makes for, once again, it's a story-making card. It makes fun things happen, and that's why it's my number one. This is a continuation of a series that we've started, I guess maybe like a month or so ago, or 2 months ago, where we are looking at each wave, and this is our look at Wave 5, aka the Sinister Motives wave, in which we have Miles Morales, Spider-Man, Ghost Spider, Ironheart, Nova, Spider-Ham, and SPDR to be evaluating. And I'll even say that this was a hard list for me to come to. I'll say that some of these points, ask me tomorrow, they might be shifted in one direction or the other by one spot. This was a hard list where I came up with 8 and then had to really comb back through and say, like, what is my top 10? And I think that comes down to the fact that I respect all these heroes. I think they're all really fun in different ways. I think they all have their high points. I think they really have their strengths, their weaknesses, and everything. And so looking at their kit, it really just came down to, like, what do I think is the creme de la creme of these cards? And like I said, that got me to 8. And then I had to pick 2 more. The 8 that I picked, I think, are solid, like above the curve of everything else. And I felt like everything else that fell under it, like if I were to do a top 20, it would really start to come into really minute differences in what I thought, spots 20 through 9 were. And so, yeah, what we come up with is a very convoluted list. I love this wave, but it is certainly one that I think is probably very powerful, but I think is a very flat wave with then a very steep drop-off. But let's get into it. Let's not waste any more time. We have my number 10, which is Rapid Deployment, a 2-cost event out of the SPDR pack. It has a thwart trait and hero action. Remove 3 threat from a scheme if you paid for this card using a resource generated by SPDR suit's sync ratio ability. Remove 3 threat from a scheme. So what I like about this is, at the baseline, you're going to remove 3 threat. Most of the time, in my experience, when I'm using SPDR, I am using the sync ratio ability in some form or fashion, and that is just basically where you are using one of your interface cards to basically exhaust it for the energy resource on it, or I guess for the resource on there. Energy is a type of resource. I shouldn't say that. But what I like about this card is just that at a baseline, it is probably, it's always going to remove 3. But I would say 75% of the time, I'm removing 6. So 2 for 6 threat removal is pretty good. And it can really help in a clutch situation where you have to deal with a crisis icon either getting in the way if you're just hitting the main scheme, or just you need to get rid of it, but you also want to split your resources between two different places. Either way, all to say, like I just think this is a strong card that I think. Am I thinking incorrectly? I think this is the only SPDR card, and that's just because I actually the cards that fall above it I really love. And so yeah, this was a tough one to decide, because I do think that the power level, or the I guess the power level of the SPDR cards are very similar to each other. The interfaces, while they have really good abilities, I think they just sort of all hit a similar level. So yeah, this would be my only SPDR card. I can imagine there are fans of the hero that are really going to not enjoy hearing that, but I would say the other cards in her pack, like the one that give you plus attack, defense, or thwarting, probably fall within a top 15. One of those is going to fall in the top 15. Yeah, unfortunately, this is my only SPDR card, and yeah, rapid deployment. Next up, we have my number 9, which is Phantom Flip out of the, I guess it would be out of the Sinister Motives campaign box, but out of Ghost Spider's kit. It is a 2-cost event, thwart, traded with hero response. After Ghost Spider uses a basic power, remove 5 threat from scheme, max 1 per basic power use. And what I like about this is that it is just a nice way to, do a defense, remove 5 threat. Do a thwart, remove 5 threat from a different place. Make a basic attack, remove 5 threat. Like, her Ghost Kick and Phantom Flip are both cards that I think I regard very highly, and just they do a lot, even though they sort of read as not doing a whole lot. But I think this is actually a really good card for the fact that you can make a basic defense and remove 5 threat from the main scheme. So obviously you're already in hero mode in that example, so you didn't have there wasn't threat being added beyond the regular accruement of threat. But this is just a nice way to say, hey, we don't need to worry about this. We're going to be able to do it. Not to mention the fact that this is a hero response, so this then also allows you to ready up Ghost Spider, which means that on your turn, or I guess maybe you get to make another basic attack or what have you. This just gives you another activation. This gives you a ready. That's kind of the hidden text on this card. And I love hidden text on cards where it reads one way, but then when you realize what it does in gameplay, it just elevates it. And I think that Phantom Flip is just one of those cards that never stops impressing me, and it is just a solid card. And that is why it made it all the way to my number 9. Next up, we have my number 8, which is out of the Spider Ham Hero Pack, and that is Swinging Web Pig, a 3-cost event with the cartoon and attack traits. It has a hero action of attack, deal 6 damage to an enemy, confuse that enemy. This was a late addition to the list, that and Phantom Flip, and I feel like it's only because I like this as a play on words. We've got Swinging Stealth Kick, we've got Swinging Web Kick, we've got this now, like just all of them playing on different things in terms of like that basic, that gold standard of an attack. This is just a slightly downplayed version of it, but being able to confuse the enemy is so powerful. Being able to make an attack and switch down to Ultra Ego, you don't even need to worry about a thwarting from a villainous minion or from the villain himself. It's one of those things that just makes Spider Ham feel powerful. And the cost isn't even that big of a deal, because you can just remove resources, or you can remove tune counters from Spider Ham. So his economy is really good. So even though this is a rather expensive card, all things considered, I do think of it very highly, and it just generally plays so well, and I'm just so happy to have it, and that's why it is my number 8. Moving on to my number 7, out of the Ironheart Hero Pack, we have Propulsion Jets, which is a 2-cost upgrade with the Tech trait, and it has the text of you get +2 hit points, and a hero action of exhaust Propulsion Jets, remove threat from a scheme equal to Ironheart's version number. So this was a card that, as I was making my way through Ironheart's kit, I really had to stop and think about it, because there is an equivalent that does the same thing for the version number, but it is deal damage to an enemy. And this won out, spoiler alert, because I think that the ability to continually remove 3 threat once you're at version 3. At the cost of just exhausting this, there's no resource that needs to be put into it. You're always going to have that +2 health anyway. And just being able to consistently go, I'm just going to exhaust this, remove 3 threat, is what really takes Ironheart from a okay hero to one that in the late stage is just unbeatable in some capacity. She becomes uber powerful very quickly, and it's on the back of this and the other card that does the attack. I'll put it up on the screen. But either way, I think that this in general is just such a strong card that just makes her so reliable. And it was a toss-up. Did I think that it was attack or thwart that it was going to be the more important thing? And I do think that it is removing threat from a scheme, because that is something where 3 is a lot. That can wipe out a side scheme. That can just keep the main scheme in check in single player. It can even keep the main scheme in check pretty well in 3-player to some extent. And I feel like being able to deal damage is still strong because you always have the ability to aim that at the villain. But at the end of the day, you have so many other ways to be dealing out consistent damage that 1, 2, or 3 damage is good, but I feel like it's not as good as being able to consistently remove 1, 2, or 3 threat from the main scheme or from whatever scheme. So that might be just a deprioritizing or a misprioritizing of what I think makes Ironheart strong. But when I think back to the games that I have played with Ironheart, or even Iron Man to some extent, the ability to have their upgrades out that consistently remove threat from stuff gives you so much more time. And so that's why that won out in this aspect. I just think Propulsion Jets is just a consistency card that I feel like is one of those meat and potato cards. You don't think about it. When you've done well, you don't think, well, I did it because of Propulsion Jets. But at the end of the day, it gave you an extra turn or 2 or 3 or infinite extra turns. As long as you're not, well, I suppose not infinite, because at some point you're going to have so many acceleration tokens that you really ought to finish the game. All to say, I think Propulsion Jets is great, and that is why it fell into my number 7 slot. Next up, we have a card that honestly was hard for me to determine, because I knew I wanted to have a card out of Miles' Hero Pack, aka the Sinister Motives campaign box. But similar to Spider, I had a hard time with that. And so I ended up on Webshot, which is a 2-cost event, attack traded, with the hero action attack, deal 4 damage to an enemy. If you paid for this card using a energy resource, resolve Spider-Man's Web Blast ability, which deals 2 damage and stuns an enemy. I had such trouble trying to really decide what card to feature out of Miles' pack. And I'm not obliged to do that. I skipped out on Colossus in the last wave. But I knew that one of them had to win out. And in terms of what I think is just my favorite card, and I know this might even be contradictory to my new player guide, but that was like 6 months ago at this point. And my opinions have changed. And like I said at the top of the episode, everything could shift around a spot or two. And I just feel like 2 cost for 4 damage, probably 6 damage and stun, it's akin to the swinging pig kick, swinging web pig, where you're dealing 6 damage and you're confusing. In this case, you're dealing 6 damage for cheaper, and you are stunning, which just helps because obviously Miles likes to go back and forth between his hero and his alter ego. But anytime you can stay in alter ego for an extra turn or 2, it's pretty good. And yeah, so just being slightly cheaper and doing a comparable ability did edge this out over the Spider-Ham card. But at the same time, I had a hard time because Miles just has a lot of other cards that I would consider to be very kind of flat in terms of their power level. And I just, none of them really spoke to me, and this is the one that jumped out. And yeah, let's move into the top 5, which I'm very excited about because this was a nail-biter. At my number 5, we have Cartoon Physics out of the Spider-Ham pack. It is a 1-cost upgrade. Do not play it as an event. I have played it as an event before. It is an upgrade with the cartoon and superpower traits. It has an interrupt ability of when your identity would take any amount of damage, discard this card. Wiggle your body and prevent all but one of that damage. The key thing here, well, first of all, you don't need to wiggle your body. Like they've said it's just supposed to be silly, but we don't need to worry about the any kind of what's the word called? Not articulation, but finer motor skills. Like we're not trying to be biased against people who don't have the same motor skills as somebody else. What I like about this is you only take 1 damage, which is exactly what Spider-Ham's looking for. He's looking to take a single point of damage to gain that tune counter to help his economy. And this just comes out and sits there and can be just exactly what you need. In the moments when I thought this one was an event, okay, actually there was 2 different versions of this card that I played it as, and I'm embarrassed to say this. One, I played it as an event one time, and then realized when I drew another one, or the second copy, oh, that's not an event, this is an upgrade. Then I played it wrong again and just exhausted it to do this effect, and I was like, this seems broken. And then I read it like after doing that once or twice, and then went, oh, I'm supposed to be discarding this. And yeah, it's, read the card, explains the card, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I certainly have played this card incorrectly, but at the same time, I love it. It plays into what Spider-Ham wants to do. It just makes him uber powerful. You can go up against someone like Ronan, who's going to deal 7 damage to you, and go, actually, it's only 1, and you just roll with it. And it helps to make Spider-Ham into a character that I don't feel like you need. Obviously, you benefit from going to Alter Ego in pretty much any hero. He is a hero that I feel like I don't need to go to Alter Ego that often, and I find myself going to Alter Ego maybe 2 or 3 times a game. Obviously, if the game goes on longer, that number inflates over time, but I feel like I can spend 2 or 3 turns in hero form, flip over to Alter Ego, get that card advantage, maybe heal up a little bit, because you are looking to take damage, but you're looking to take small chunks of damage, then flip back over to then flip back over to hero form, keep going. This is the kind of card that just helps you to make that game plan possible, because you, like I said, you can take a sweeping amount of damage, 4, 7, what have you, and just turn it into 1. And yeah, you just roll with it, and you just do great. Next up, we have my number 4, which this was very difficult for me, because my number 4 is Miss Marvel, the signature ally out of Nova's hero pack. She's a 3-cost ally with 1 thwart, 1 attack, 3 health. She has the champion and inhuman traits, and a hero responsive after you play an event, exhaust Miss Marvel and deal 1 damage to her, return that event to your hand. I feel like it might be a little bit of hyperbole, but to some extent, I feel like Miss Marvel might be one of my favorite identity-specific allies in the game. Even just saying that out loud, and kind of like internalizing it as I was thinking about it as I was compiling this list, I now know that I need to make a video that is just ranking all of the identity-specific allies. Not everybody has them, but most people do. Most heroes do. But Miss Marvel might be one of my favorites. She might be in the top 5. I know she's probably not my favorite. Cable is pretty far up there, but I just love her ability to act like her hero form, or act like her hero card. But in this case, obviously, you only have a limited amount of uses. You can't go infinitely. But even just in Nova's pack, there are so many events that, cost 2, but because of how his cards work, only cost 1 card. But then also just, if you play other events, like this, just being able to buy them back, basically never having Kamala actually make an attack or a thwart. I mean, she has 1 and 1. She can do it, but she's not going to be, like, that's not why you put her out. You bump up her health in some way. Maybe you make her an honorary Avenger or an honorary X-Men or what have you. Somebody at the table can help you out with that. Just give her the champion card. But basically, you bump up her health so that you can get more activations out of this so that you can buy more stuff back. And I have not tried her as a sidekick. I imagine she's an amazing sidekick. But yeah, overall, I just love this card. I think it's fantastic. It does exactly what I want to do, and it just helps with the game plan, because honestly, Nova is, I think if I remember correctly, his pack is very consistent because of multiple copies of stuff. Add to that consistency would just be stellar. And I can only imagine what Miss Marvel would look like if you were playing a leadership Gamora deck and you happen to make the call Miss Marvel out of your Nova friends discard pile and put it into play under you. I can only imagine what that combination would look like. But either way, love Miss Marvel. I wanted to make her like my number one, but in thinking it over, I just couldn't do it. And so, yes, she sits at my number 4, which means that there is some steep competition here. Moving on to my number 3, we have Photon Beam, a 2-cost event, attack traded out of the Ironheart pack. It has the hero action, deal 4 damage to an enemy, place 1 progress counter on Ironheart, 2 progress counters instead if this attack defeated an enemy. There is a thwarting alternative to this, or a thwarting matching pair to this, that does basically the same thing. Get a progress counter, get 2 if you defeated that side scheme. I think the Proton Beam is better because I think that Proton Beam edges out that card. I think it's called Flyover if I remember correctly. It edges it out because I think 4 damage is enough to normally take out an enemy, which means that this should, in theory, be getting you 2 progress counters, which is just building up those progress counters to get from stage to stage stronger and stronger and faster to the point where at first when I was reading over Ironheart and then kind of listening to how people were reviewing her, I was like, I don't see how you make it to stage 3 in like the second turn. But having played with her enough, I realized that like you just need to hard mulligan for at least 2 cards that are going to add progress counters to her in some form or fashion, and then you can very easily make it to stage 3 if you just want a hard push for it. But yeah, overall, I think this is an amazing card. It just feels good to play. It helps you to progress through your stages, and that's all I can ask for. And yeah, I think it is, of the 2 kind of mirrored pairs here, I think it is the one that's going to be able to get you those 2 progress counters the easiest, because like I said, I think dealing 4 damage to an enemy, there's going to be a minion out. If you combine her with the minion summoning out of White Winter Soldier, I can only imagine how much more consistent this card is going to be, and I think that maybe its stock would go up, and I'm just underselling it in the new world that we exist in. Moving on to my number 2, let's talk about Ghost Kick, a 2-cost event, attack traded. This is out of the Sinister motives because it's a Ghost Spider card. And it has the hero response of, after Ghost Spider uses a basic power, deal 6 damage to an enemy, max 1 per basic power use. Now, notably, if you happen to have Phantom Flip, you can use both Ghost Kick and Phantom Flip in the same thing. You just can't use 2 copies of Ghost Kick. And yeah, overall, just playing into her want for responses, this means that you can defend, Ghost Kick, ready her backup. It feels really good. And frankly, this was so incredibly close to being my number 1. It is, I think, if I remember correctly, I think it's my favorite attack event. That might be a spoiler for a top 5 list that I did a few months back. But either way, this is just a card that is iconic. I think that it exemplifies what Ghost Spider is. And there's nothing better than defending and then just hitting somebody for 5. And it doesn't even need to be the person that you defended against. And if you do this with a basic attack, it doesn't need to be the character that you attacked against. You can do a basic thwart and get 5 damage in. It is so flexible and so strong. And yes, it does have the extra payment of you need to be able to basically exhaust your hero. But Ghost Spider is so good at readying up that you're not going to find yourself in too many situations where you exhausted for some reason and didn't get a way to ready back up. Because if you exhausted, why didn't you just use the Ghost Kick? But yeah, I love this card. It is easily in the pantheon of Marvel Champions cards for me, and it is my number 2 for this wave. But what is number 1? This was one that was really hard to figure out because it immediately jumped to my mind as I was making the list. And then as I began to think it over, it just kept stepping over cards. Like it started at like number 5 and just kept getting moved up. And that is Unleash Nova Force out of the Nova Hero pack. It is a 1-cost event, superpower, max 1 per round for a reason. And it has the hero action of, until the end of the round, each time Nova defeats an enemy or removes the last threat from a scheme, ready Nova and draw 1 card. This is normally a 2-card combo in other hero packs. You need to get out Valhalla and the Death Glow for Valkyrie to basically draw a card and ready back up. And in that combination, you have to exhaust Valhalla and you only get to do it once. This is, you set up Nova in the right way to be able to just take out an enemy, ready back up, draw a card. Oh, that card happens to be something that's going to help me. His economy is so good because a lot of his cards say that if you use a wild resource, it basically it gives you 2 resources for that. That card also happens to cost 2. So for the cost of a single card, you can play a 2-cost card. So what ends up happening is Unleash the Nova Force just goes wild. And I don't remember if when I reviewed Nova, if I put this as my favorite card, but it very quickly, as I was looking at all the cards in the hero kits for the wave, like I said, it was an immediate one. It was one that I wrote down before I even started doing the research. And then as I was trying to figure out where it was, it just kept rising up because it is such a powerful card. It is a story maker. I love story making cards. And while Nova might not be my favorite hero, he has easily one of my favorite cards in the game. And yeah, Unleash Nova Force was just the bee's knees for me and exactly what I was looking for. This week we are breaking down my favorite cards from the hero packs for the Mad Titan Shadow Wave, aka wave number 4. I had to think about that. That's the murky area of the list. So today we are talking about Spectrum, Adam Warlock, War Machine, Nebula, Valkyrie, and Vision. 6 new heroes this week, and yeah, I will say that this is a grouping of heroes that I have a little less experience with. I have a lot of experience with Valkyrie for obvious reasons, and then the other ones I will say that I have very spotty experience with, but at the same time, I've played with all of them. I do have at least strong opinions about 1 or 2 of them, and so thankfully this list is going to be pretty easy. I will even say that this was one of the first lists where I had honorable mentions to some extent, where I had to sit there and really break it down and go, okay, I think I've come up with 12 cards. What are the top 10 going to be? So let's dive right into it. Let's waste no more time, and let's talk about my number 10, which is Karmic Blast, a 2-cost event from the Adam Warlock pack with the attack and superpower traits, and the hero action of deal 4 damage to an enemy and discard up to 4 cards from the top of your deck. Deal 1 additional damage to that enemy for each different aspect discarded this way. And with the old text, it says the aspects are aggression, justice, leadership, and protection. Obviously, pool is now on the table here, and Adam Warlock's deck building allows him to pick 4 of the aspects and, have them in all perfect balance. I guess what I really like about this card is that I don't have a whole lot of love for Adam Warlock, and I'll say that his hero pack is kind of dull to me to some extent. It's just the games I've played with Adam Warlock, I had a lot more fun just trying to come up with a singleton deck to kind of complement what he was doing. And so this felt like it was the meeting of all of those things that I do enjoy about Adam Warlock. It is playing into his theme of wanting a balance of aspects. This plays off that really well. Right off the bat, you deal 4 damage. That's pretty good for a 2-cost event. And then, in my experience, you are probably going to end up dealing about 6 damage with this. The times I played with it, I think I dealt pretty consistently 6 damage because you'd hit an Adam Warlock card. You'd hit a aggression card, protection card. It all kind of goes in whatever way possible. I don't remember if he has any kind of top deck manipulation. I'm drawing a blank there. I don't have a lot of experience with Adam Warlock. He's a hero to me is defined more by the aspect cards than his own cards. And I don't know that I've ever met someone who's a strong, stand for Adam Warlock, which is a shame. I think he's a really cool character in the comics. He's just not the most compelling character in our game, unfortunately. But that is my number 10. Let's move on to my number 9. Let's talk a little bit more positively about the game. And that is the 1-cost event from the Vision pack, Mass Increase. A defense and superpower traded card. Play only if Vision is in dense mass form. And hero interrupt of defense. When Vision defends, prevent all damage from that attack. Stun the attacking enemy after this attack resolves. What I love about this is it just plays in so thematically into what Vision does. Additionally, I like that obviously it does come with the additional cost that you have to be in dense form. I've never really had a problem matching the forms for Vision, so I don't see that as much of a tax. If anything, it is valuing players that want to think through their turns. You need to have a plan when you're playing with Vision. You can't just kind of play off the cuff a whole lot. You need to plan it out a little bit because the mass form is something you do need to take into consideration. But again, I've never had trouble getting into the correct mass form. It's just a matter of making sure that you're sequencing your turns. This is just such an incredible defense card, and I think that it makes it so that in a modern context, I never have a problem making Vision into a perfect defense deck if that's what I'm aiming for, because right in his kit he has a way to make sure that he doesn't take any damage. Additionally, being able to stun the attacking enemy just buys you an extra turn. The other day I was playtesting a scenario for a series I'm going to be doing in the future, and using Bucky, and just I was impressed by when I was able to stun the villain I was going up against. It really changed the math, where it's just like, okay, now I know that I'm good to make it into the next, like I bought myself an extra round. I do think that if I have that extra round, I might not even need to worry about the attack after that, but I know that I'm good there. And the power of stun, obviously stun locking is a very strong archetype, but overall I look at it and I think about what Vision's capable of doing, able to go into his dense form, which unfortunately, let me see here. Let me pull that up so I can just make sure that I am representing that correctly. Boom Guy will eventually probably hear this, and if I get too much wrong about Vision, I will definitely hear about it in the comics. Let me just make sure I have what attributes. Okay, so his dense form, while in hero form, he gets +2 attack, +2 defense. After you change to this mass form, draw a card. Okay, so again, like I said, I don't really ever have a problem getting into the version that I need to be in, because obviously just as an action, Vision can change his upgrade. But just being able to get into that form, you already have a high defense, so if you're going up against multiple, because he is also somebody that likes to collect minions to some extent, but it's like if you can buy yourself that free turn, block the villain's attack, and then that your defense is going to be high enough that you can just maybe defend against that minion. If they really, if your life total's getting low, or they have it out for you, you've got that guaranteed mass defense upgrade with you. But either way, a lot to say about a card that I think is pretty simple. It's very strategic value. It has its purpose, and overall, it's it topped my favorite defense cards overall in the game for a reason. I think it's a really cool card, and I think it's thematic, and I think it's just a great Vision card. Moving on to my number 8, we have the 1-cost upgrade out of the Nebula pack called Wide Stance. It is a technique traded, which is important. While Nebula is in hero form, reduce the amount of damage he takes from each attack by 1. And then the special on here is look at the top 3 cards of the encounter deck, discard 1, and put the others back in any order. And the special is important because obviously Nebula has her force response, where after your turn begins, you resolve the special ability on each technique upgrade you control, and then discard each technique upgrade resolved this way. So the important thing here is just that obviously you're going to be reducing the amount of damage you take while you're in hero form, which is important. You go into hero form, you go to the villain phase, you're reducing the damage. When you start your turn, you're going to lose this card, but you're going to be able to look at the top 3 cards in the encounter deck, discard one of them that doesn't really work out for you. It does help to set that up. I'm impressed whenever a hero has the ability to, in their pack, do encounter deck manipulation. Obviously, there's also the fact that you can get strategic with this. You can sit there and go into Alter Ego. You can collect these techniques. I believe when you're in Alter Ego, whenever you play a technique, you draw a card. Her techniques are generally pretty inexpensive, so it's just a good way to to sift through your deck really quick. But overall, yeah, I love Wide Stance just for making it easier to stay in hero form. And then it's one that I want to have that's going to be collected with other techniques, so that you're reducing the amount of damage you take. Yes, you are getting a massive advantage by controlling the top of the encounter deck. And solo, this is basically saying, what do I want my boost card to be? What do I want my encounter card to be? Super great. In multiplayer, it can be a little bit more strategic, helping out the group overall. But yeah, overall, just like I said, I want to have this as a card that is collected with other techniques, so that it's making staying in hero form before I go into that huge technique turn into something bigger and better. And yeah, overall, just I love this card. I think that Nebula as a hero is underrated. I don't see her, obviously she's an older character, but I feel like more and more cards come out and I never hear anybody kind of like say, oh, this would go really well in Nebula. And I have to think that's also because I don't necessarily know there's a lot of Nebula stands. I think that she is a pretty good hero. I would say that she probably falls into the top half. I'd have to go look at my pub meeple thing to kind of say like most recently where did I fall on that. But either way, like I like Nebula. I'd like to think that she's probably, I know she's in my top like 2/3. I want to say she's probably in the top half of all the heroes. I think she's very interesting. I think that she rewards just a lot of forethought, and so yeah, for overall, I like that. I like her as a hero, and I like Wide Stance. Moving on to my number 7, we have Phase Disruption, a 2-cost event from the Vision pack. Superpower trait, and play only if Vision is in the intangible form. Again, I'm not too concerned about that. It's pretty easy to set that up with enough forethought. Hero action, confuse an enemy, choose an attachment on that enemy with hero action or hero response, and discard that attachment. So the first time that I ever played with Vision was up against Crossbones. And my oh my, did having this on the first turn just make handling the, what is that called? That's not the Weapon Master, Experimental Weapon deck. So the Experimental Weapon deck, where you are drawing these super powered or super powerful weapons that Crossbones using to try to take you down. This was just a cheat code for that. You just go and you go bloop, the weapon is gone, and you're just sort of playing on, well, it's not even ground. You're kind of cheating, but you're not playing on a perceived level playing field with the villain. This is something that we see with Magneto. I believe this is something that also is seen in Shadowcat's pack, if memory serves. But yeah, overall, this is just a cool thing. You confuse the enemy. It's got aim on there. So actually, thematically, this also handles villains or the minions that have the new keyword where when they become confused, you just discard them. So I guess that sort of does double duty there. You can get rid of an attachment anyway. But yeah, overall, if you want to do this, you confuse the villain. You get rid of their super powerful thing. Like this probably is very good against Ronin because the ultimate weapon is definitely a thing. But yeah, this applies to so many places, and I think that it's a card that does a lot of work. I would be surprised if there's a lot of people that don't even think about it as a Vision card. But to me, like I said, it definitely defined the first game I played with Vision. Happened by happenstance. I had this in my opening hand. I'd played Crossbones before, but I didn't know this card. I didn't know his pack well enough to know that this was a card in his pack. And then when I drew it, I was like, I'm not mulliganing this away. I'm just going to play this straight up. This is pretty awesome. And yeah, just it makes for good stories. Even though this is kind of a simple story, I'm still a character that loves good stories. Moving on to my number 6, we have Flight of the Valkyrier from the Valkyrie pack. It is a 2-cost upgrade with the response of after the enemy with the death glow is defeated, discard Flight of the Valkyrier, remove 5 threat from a scheme. So this ranks up very highly for me just because I have a lot of faith in Valkyrie. Is she the best hero? No, she's not the best hero. She's not in the top 10. She might not even be in the top 20. I think there's people that would put her in their bottom 5. I don't see her that way. I think that she's a very interesting hero with just a chip on her shoulder and a puzzle to crack. But overall, I think this is such a great way to take what she's doing with her mechanic with the Deathglow, which I suppose the Deathglow was on the table to be a card, and I'm pretty sure it's not a card that's on this list. But either way, I think this takes her Deathglow gimmick and definitely helps to make her threat assessment or her ability to handle schemes much more tangible. And that's not something that a lot of people will say, but I've played enough games with Valkyrie that I think this is a stellar card. And just being able to plan that you don't have to do this on the first time you take out an enemy, but you sit there and you just go, you know what, I'm going to take out this enemy with the Deathglow on it. The threat's going to go from 7 down to 2. We're golden. Let's just keep moving forward. Let's be constructive. And yeah, overall, I think this is such a great card. I think it plays into everything. It's so thematic what she's trying to do. And yeah, that's why it made it into my top 10 and made it to my number 6. But moving on to my number 5 and turning the corner to the top of the list, we have the 2-cost upgrade from the Spectrum pack, Energy Duplication. It is a superpower with the hero, a superpower trait with the hero response of Exhaust Energy Duplication. Generate the printed resource on your face-up energy form upgrade. And so this answers the question of why do these why do these energy upgrades have printed resources on them when they're never going to be in your hand? They're always just going to be, flipping around in front of you. For the most part, I would say that the resource you generate doesn't come up a lot, but it does make it so that Spectrum is a hero that can match requirements fairly easy. I will fully admit that unlike someone like Vision, who I'm not worried about what form he's going to be in, similar to, I guess, like, Angel has multiple forms you can go to, Ant-Man, Shadowcat, all these different forms. Like, Spectrum is admittedly a character that is on the more difficult side to be getting her energy forms, because if I remember correctly, I think that you can go into Ultra Ego and do it, or maybe it's when you go into Ultra Ego and you flip to hero form. I don't remember. The cards will be up on the screen. But I will fully admit, getting into the energy form you need can be difficult. Her events that care about that definitely could push you into whatever one you need to be in. If you happen to be in the right one, you do get that kicker effect. But this just comes down, it doesn't really matter. Like I said, if you're worried about requirements, you can definitely err on the side of trying to make that happen. But for the most part, this is just a 2 cost. Make the printed resource you need. It costs 2. It's pretty inexpensive. It doesn't go away. It doesn't have uses. It just does what it does. And yeah, overall, I don't remember. I don't think I have any more. Yeah, I don't have any more Spectrum cards on the list. Spectrum is a hard hero to love. I think that she has a lot of what I would consider to be B- cards, and then I would consider this to be like a B+. It's not stellar. It's not great. I do think that overall I do get a lot of use out of it, and I am somebody that enjoys playing Spectrum, but I will fully admit that she has her flaws. But energy duplication is not one of those flaws. Next up at my number 4, we have out of the Nebula pack, Weapons Master, a 1-cost upgrade, technique again. While in hero form, Nebula has Retaliate 1. Definitely want to team this up with Wide Stance, and the special ability on it is it has the attack trait, deal 4 damage to an enemy. So this is a nice way to get rid of a stun. Probably not the way you want to get rid of the stun, but this is a way to get rid of a stun if you happen to have it. The Retaliate's nice, because especially teamed up with Wide Stance, you're taking 1 less damage or dealing an extra damage to every enemy that attacks you. Like I said, this is not the place where you want to get rid of the stun. If that happens, it's unfortunate. But dealing 4 damage is pretty good. I remember, if I remember correctly, she's a 2/2/2 hero. She's a 2/2/2 hero. So this is effectively 2 of your attacks. And overall, just being able to take out a problem minion that might have guard, being able to just push the villain to the next stage. Whatever you're doing with this Weapon Master is certainly a card that will do what you need, and I would not shy away from it. And that's why it made it into my top 10, and that's why it is my number 4. Moving on to number 3, we return back to the Valkyrie pack with the 2-cost support, Valhalla. It has the Asgard and location traits, and the response of after Valkyrie attacks and defeats the enemy with the Death Glow attached, exhaust Valhalla, draw 1 card, and heal 1 damage from Valkyrie. I'm trying to think who this overlapped with. I guess you can sort of draw a line between Valkyrie and Winter Soldier. I also suppose to some extent Tigra is one of those characters that people have making a lot of comparisons about how she works and Valkyrie works. And actually that probably is the one that I was trying to think of. But Valhalla is a really good card. It's unfortunate that you only get 1 use out of this, but it does give you, 1, it heals you, which can be super nice, just being able to take off a couple hit points here and there, but then being able to draw cards so that you can basically put the Death Glow back down, maybe make another attack, is just really well appreciated. I don't think this is an underrated card. I think it's just on an underrated hero. Overall, I like this card. It is definitely one that I hard mulligan for, because if you have this and her weapon, the Dragon Fang, you are pretty well set up to just take out an enemy, bounce the Death Glow back to your hand, ready back up, heal a damage, draw a card, put the Death Glow onto something, attack it. You still get to ready back up with Valkyrie. You don't draw another card, but that if you have Valhalla, if you have Dragon Fang, if you have just either one of those 2 cards, you're probably very well set up. But Valhalla, I think, is what really pushes you over, makes playing Valkyrie really, really fun. And it's unfortunate that this is just a one-of card, because I do think that it's just one of those cards that it so easily makes Valkyrie into a very fun hero to play with, being able to combo off. I think of the fight between Captain America and Thanos a lot when Valkyrie's getting into into her business, where Cap just like throws the hammer, or okay, what was it in Endgame? Did he throw the shield and then it bounced off of Thanos and he throws the hammer and it bounces back at Thanos? Like, just when you get into really good, you get into the right cadence with Valkyrie, it just feels like you're like comboing off, and it feels really good. And I realized that like I'm, old man shouting at clouds, like, Valkyrie's an okay hero. And it's cards like this that really do it, to sort of make that all buttery smooth. But that's enough about Valhalla. And let's move on to my number 2, which is probably going to be controversial for some people. So let's talk about Vivian, the 2-cost ally out of the Vision pack. She's an ally with the Android and Champion traits. She has 1 thwart, 1 attack, and 2 health. And while you are in intangible form, Vivian has +2 thwart. While you're in dense form, Vivian has +2 attack. This is probably a little controversial because I would say this is potentially the best identity-specific ally in the game. Easily in the top 5, probably in the top 3, might be the best identity-specific ally in the game. And that's why part of this list does come down to preferences. It comes down to my own opinions. I do think she's a very, very good card. I have not gotten the same use out of her that I've seen other people, where you basically give her a bunch of health and let her just be the hero or whatever. I think that strategy is very good. I have not gone out of my way to do that. At the same time, I can think of putting a lot of like honorary X-Men, a lot like the Shield honorary Shield agent, whatever that's called. Like, just have the entire table handing out traits is probably really good. Honorary Avenger, whatever have you. The reboot card to ready her back up. This is a very, very good card, and it's very effective, and you can do exactly what you need. If you need to be in the thwarting role, you can just have her thwarting for 3 every turn. If you need to be the attacker, you can just have her attacking for 3 every turn. It is very, very, very good. You can heal her back up, you can give her extra health, everything. Like, I am not in disagreement of that. It's just at the end of the day, Vivian is a very good card that I happen to just like. In this card pool, I just like her as number 2. That's bold, because that also means that over the entire scope of the game, I value other cards over her. But either way, let's get to my number 1. Let some of the tension go over. I'm not a huge fan of this hero, but here we are. We're talking about Shoulder Cannon. The 2-cost upgrade. It is a tech and weapon traded upgrade with the hero action of Exhaust Shoulder Cannon. Deal 1 damage to an enemy. You may remove 1 ammo counter from War Machine to ready Shoulder Cannon. So this is, I think, a really stellar card. It is a story maker. I watched Andy N, who made the Mr. Negative scenario recently, maybe maybe it was like 8 weeks ago. I was playing with him and his brother, and additionally Band of Sirens, who did the custom art for Con of Heroes. They're all local. I was playing with them a couple weeks ago, and Andy did a lot of really good work with Shoulder Cannon. It reminded me of how much I love the card, and it feels good, like that. Like I was describing that Captain America Thanos moment from Endgame. It's not the same in this case, but it sort of feels the same, where it's like you hit an enemy for 1, you remove a counter, you ready this back up, you hit an enemy for 1. Like, obviously there are better things you could be doing with War Machine as a whole. You could be taking off a bunch of counters, doing whatnot, but Shoulder Cannon is the card that just sits in play, and I feel like just does a lot of work. We kept joking during this game that Shoulder Cannon was putting enemies into Winter Soldier range, or Bucky range. You get them down to 2 health, or 2 or less health. Bucky comes over, defeats them, removes 2 threat from a scheme. Maybe you ready back up Bucky. He does it again and again. But like, this is a rare card that I think I value because it does so much work in multiplayer. And I'm not a huge multiplayer player. I'd like to do more of it, but it's not always in the cards. I'm not always available, and I'm in a part of Minnesota that's just far enough from the main locals group that I can't always make it out. But when I can, I do enjoy it. And like I said, this card I think probably would have been in my top 5 previous to that game, but after being reminded of just how fun it is, I was like, yeah, this is my number one. It's purely for the fun. It's not necessarily for the power. It's for the stories, and I love telling stories. Here we are making our way backwards through the waves of Marvel Champions, and we finally reached Wave 3, where we will be talking about the top 10 hero cards from Wave 3, aka Galaxy's Most Wanted. And that would include Groot, Rocket, Star-Lord, Gamora, Drax, and Agent Venom. Those are the 6 characters that we have on the list today, and I'll even say right off the bat, this is a ridiculously difficult list for me to put together. I am not the biggest fan of this wave. I like a lot of the characters, but I don't think about them a lot. I don't recommend them a lot. I ought to, because I do think that like Gamora is a really interesting new player hero. I think that Star-Lord is definitely one for the experienced player, and Rocket is a character, and actually Rocket is probably also a really good new player character. Groot, I never clicked with. Agent Venom is extremely powerful, and Drax is extremely fun. They all have their highlights. I don't know. I don't think about this list. I don't think about these characters a lot, and so that made turning to this, I thought was going to be really difficult, and it was difficult in a different way because actually, ironically, once I figured out the 10, trying to figure out how to order them was very, very difficult. And for the first time ever, I'm even going to have honorable mentions because I wanted to pick both of these cards, but I realized that they were so entwined with each other that to pick one over the other was going to be difficult, and to pick them as a group as a single slot seemed a little unfair. So I do have the honorable mention, Acrobatic Move and Set the Pace out of the Gamora pack. Acrobatic Move is a 0-cost event with the attack trait. It has the hero action, attack, deal 2 damage to an enemy. Set the Pace is a 0-cost event with the thwart trait and the hero action of thwart, remove one threat from a scheme. These 2 cards, interesting to me because of how well they tie into what Gamora is going to do, and then they turn on the other cards in her kit. Decisive Blow and Forward Momentum, I think, are the 2 that come to mind, where both of those cards care about you. One is an attack that wants you to have thwarted this turn. The other is a thwarting event that wants you to have attacked this turn. And these 2 0-cost events, just turn them on. I wanted to pick both of them, but the problem was like saying this is number 9, this is number 8. That's felt unfair. So I'm just going to highlight them as honorable mentions. And let's now get into the prime of our list. This is, like I said, this is difficult because I will also preface with the fact that this is my opinion. This is not the most powerful cards. These are my favorite cards out of each of their hero kits. And we're going to see the ramifications of that very soon, as cards that I believe a lot of people would put at number 1 for the most powerful cards in the set do not fall into the top 3. We'll just put it that way. But let's start off the list with my number 10. And that is Root Stomp. Root Stomp is a 2-cost event out of the, I guess it would be out of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., out of the Galaxy's Most Wanted campaign box, but it is out of Groot's kit. It is a 2-cost event, attack superpower with the hero action of attack, deal 5 damage to an enemy. If this attack defeats an enemy, place 1 growth counter on Groot to a maximum of 10. So Groot has this growth counter gimmick, and I'll say that I think that it is interesting. I believe that the way the rules about how defense worked, I believe, affected Groot. I'm not sure of that, only because I came along during the beginning of the X-Men wave. So a lot of these rules changes that may or may not have affected cards, I don't have a context for what it was like beforehand versus what it was like afterwards. Either way, the way that growth counters work with Groot was a little difficult for me to wrap my head around. I've never really felt confident, like I was actually playing it correctly, like I knew how to use the growth counters, like I knew how to prevent damage so I don't lose growth counters, blah, blah, blah. What I like about Root Stomp is real simple. It wants you to deal damage, 2 damage, or 2 costs for 5 damage is pretty good. And the ability to just defeat an enemy, put a growth counter, that is feeding into your gimmick, that is making him better, and it's the one card in Groot's kit that I really feel like I have my mind correctly wrapped around, and it's not just about a fun gimmick or a fun joke. It actually feels like it is the one card that really helps me to understand Groot and make me want to play Groot. And so yeah, that is why it falls at my number 10. Next up is my number 9, coming out of the Drax Hero Kit, and that is Drax's Other Knife. It is a 1-cost upgrade, weapon traded, restricted, so you can only have 2 restricted per player, and while in hero form, Drax gains Retaliate 1. So first of all, I just like the name. I like the fact that Drax in his kit has Drax's Knife and Drax's Other Knife. Drax's Knife, I believe, gives him +1 to his attack, and I think that is it. I'll have it up on screen, but I think that's all that it does. What I like about Drax's Other Knife is that Drax wants to be attacked. Retaliate 1 makes it so that that does not come at an extreme deficit to you. So not only is it playing into what Drax wants to do, it is helping you to move forward. You know, I mean, the classic thing of, oh, well, maybe it removes a tough. But even if it's dealing a damage, if that's what it's doing, it is getting you closer. Drax can swing for a lot of damage, but when you nickel and dime, you're taking out those small little bits of damage over the course of the game. That can turn into, you know, cutting an entire turn off of the game from Drax's perspective. Like, if you've got someone with, 17 hit points and Drax can deal, 3 or 4 damage, or let's just say 3, because 4 is so close that, 1 retaliate damage is going to make the difference here. But like, you're dealing 3 damage. So, okay, all of a sudden, the Retaliate makes it so that it goes from being a 6-turn clock, could be down to a 5-turn clock, could even, over the course of the game, go down to a 4-turn clock with what you're trying to do. And that just general math, that general way that Drax works, and the way that Retaliate interacts with what he wants to do was impressive to me. It's a very basic card. There's not a lot to it, but yeah, that's why it fell by number 9. It's not that complex, but at the same time, it is a card that I am happy to draw when I can get it. Moving on to my number 8, and this is where I'm probably going to get the most amount of people who will be coming at me with, with swords and everything. My number 8 is Multi-Gun out of the Venom Hero Pack. So Venom is a very good hero. Multi-Gun is a very, very good card. Let's break it down. So it is a 3-cost upgrade with the tech and weapon traded. It is restricted. And the hero action of Exhaust Multi-Gun, choose one of the following. Deal 2 damage to an enemy, or choose a player, deal 1 damage to each minion engaged with that player, or remove 2 threat from a scheme. Very good card. Very, very good card. My issue with it is less of how powerful it is, and more of how much it just takes all of the air out of what Venom is trying to do. It is such a useful card that it just sort of dominates what Venom is doing. It's to the point where I am not one to min-max a lot of things. I'm not one to try to do exactly what is the most economical thing to do. But with the multi-gun, it's hard to not let that just be the weapon you hard mulligan for, the weapon that you try to get with his setup ability, if I remember correctly. It just becomes this, the rest of the game revolves around multi-gun. It's the same reason why I love what Maria Hill can do, but the Iliad, little too strong for me, and her other other helicarrier-esque things, or other vehicles, also are so powerful that they have a gravitational shift. And so when it comes to my favorite cards, Multi-Gun is definitely on the list. In a different world, it could probably be in my top 3, but it's my number 8 because it takes Venom from being a character that I enjoy to one that I feel like I'm sort of beholden to following the strategy. And I realize that I could avoid that, but I feel like at the point when you're literally going, I am going to kneecap myself and not lean into what is powerful about this hero, I think that's a detriment. And I don't even want to say that it's bad for the game, because it's not bad for the game. It's just one of those things where, as a personal preference, this is just not a card that I enjoy. Like, it's just too powerful for me. And like I said before, that could come back to bite me, but it's just the way I feel. I want to feel clever, and this is a card that does not make me feel clever because it's just so good. Moving on to my number 7, we have out of Galaxy's Most Wanted, but out of Rocket's hero kit, we have Salvage, a unique resource. So it is a resource that generates a genius and a wild, and has a response of, after you spend this card, put a tech upgrade from your discard pile on top of your deck. I think this is a really interesting way to not only being a resource card, but also just a way to interact with what Rocket is trying to do, because he definitely embodies the idea of taking his weapons, his tech, and just like repurposing it into other things. There's obviously the actual card repurpose, but he kind of has the ability to just like discard a tech he has in play, I believe, to draw 2 cards. I could be wrong. Again, it's gonna be up on the screen. This just playing into not only being a double resource, but being a way to then bring that tech back and set it up so that it is the card that you will draw on your next turn. I love it. I love how unique it is. I love how it plays, and it just continues to impress me every time, because it makes me feel clever. It makes me go, oh wait, actually, so I can, if I do this, if I discard this to draw 2 cards, then I've got 2 mystery cards. But then when I flip over to hero form, you don't even have to do that, but let's say you do. Like, I can flip over to hero form, I can play salvage, I can get the item back. I can have it next turn, which means that I can do this, that, but then I know that I'm going to have this next turn. And yeah, you start to just bop, 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 bop. And yeah, it just makes me feel smart. It makes me feel clever. And I like it when I can feel clever, because that doesn't always happen. I often feel very dumb, and this is a card that makes up for it. Moving on to my number 6, we have Conditioning Room out of the Gamora Hero Pack. And this is another card that is very, very, very powerful, very, very, very good. And I just kind of have some grievances with it. So it is a 1-cost support with the location trait. It has alter ego action of exhaust Conditioning Room, return the bottommost attack or thwart event from your discard pile to your hand, heal 1 damage from Gamora. This is a fantastic card. There's no getting around it. Again, it just feels like one of those cards that, like, you're not playing Gamora if you don't have this in play. I'm not going to hard mulligan for it, but when I see it, I'm going to get it into play. And again, it's not as, obviously with the placement, it's 6/8. But in a similar vein to Multigun, Conditioning Room sort of has its own gravitational pull. And like, it begins to take a character like Gamora, who I find to be very unique, very fun, very powerful, and just sort of takes a little bit of that uniqueness out. And obviously we're playing a game where every hero is going to always have 15 of the same cards in their deck. It's bound to happen with any hero. But Conditioning Room is so good that you almost feel like you're making an incorrect move, not putting it into play. And so that's why it lost a few points. And this is going to be the point when I'll say, going into the top, actually, even with Multigun, the top 8 was literally razor thin. Once I found my 10, all of these picks could literally shift around if I had like a change of mood. This is a razor thin margin going into the top 5, and Conditioning Room just fell right outside of that. So speaking of that, let's move into my number 5, which is Rocket Launcher, a 3-cost upgrade out of the Galaxy's Most Wanted. It's in Rocket Raccoon's hero pack. It is a tech weapon, restricted, we already know what that is, and enters play with 2 charge counters on it. Notably, this does not have uses, so when those counters fall off, this does not go away, which is important because it is tech, and Rocket likes to turn tech into cards. Hero action, exhaust Rocket Launcher, and remove 1 charge counter from it. Choose a player, deal 2 damage to the villain, and each minion engage with that player. This is a great card. I love it. I love the ability to just fire off 2 damage to the villain and each minion engage with you. I will say that this does have the setback of being a card from the first couple of years of the game. I think that in the modern world, this would potentially deal 3 damage to the villain and each minion engage with you. That might be pushing it. At that point, that becomes one of Maria Hill's vehicles. I think the red one, the Bucephalon or whatever it's called, and that costs 6. So I can see how I might be a little off, but at the same time, it costs 6 because Maria Hill is literally going to take those 2 uses and turn them into more. But I do think that this is a very good card. I think that I think it's just lost a little bit of its luster from just falling behind to just the power curve, the power scaling. It's just a little bit behind the curve now, but I still think it's a cool card. I love the fact that it's a tech, so you get off your 2 shots, then you turn it into 2 more cards with Rocket. He goes to Alter Ego form, and yeah, it's just overall, it's a cool visual and just a really cool card, and I appreciate it, and that's why it is my number 5. Moving on to my number 4. I think this is my last Venom card. Wow, it is. Okay, that says a lot. Okay, so we have Grasping Tendrils, a 2-cost event, defense traded with the hero interrupt of defense. When the villain initiates attack against you, cancel the attack. If you paid for this using a strength resource, stun the villain. So obviously, Venom already has the ability to deal damage to himself, generate a wild. So you're probably going to hit the stun if you want to. You don't have to, but you probably will. I guess if you're getting attacked, so you're in hero form. The fact that this just cancels it like the webbed up from Spider-Man is really cool. It's thematically pretty much the same thing, but then being able to stun, again, that's just like the webbed up. And yeah, I love the way that this interacts with the game. I love the fact that you are defending, so you do get a defense trigger. I don't believe you get the kind of like perfect defense triggers where if you take no damage, then you do X. Maybe you do, and I haven't played Venom recently enough to really say like, okay, I've got this fresh and new in my mind. Here's how this interaction works. I don't think when you do this, you're defending. Maybe you actually, on the second hand, maybe you are, because you are defending and you didn't take any damage. I'm not sure. I will put it up on the screen. I will look up the rules in the meantime. But either way, yeah, just this is such a cool card. I love the way it interacts with the way that with the way the Venom works, and I love it just kind of as a nod to the original Spider-Man design out of the core set. Moving on to my number 3, we have out of the Gamora pack, we have the 2-cost event Decisive Blow. This is attack traded, hero action attack, deal 4 damage to an enemy, 7 damage instead if you have played a thwart event this turn. So I already alluded to this earlier on in the list, well, I guess when I mentioned my honorable mentions, but I love this just for the sheer fact that you are very much going to deal 7 damage, probably all the time. Secretly, that does sort of like pay off because suddenly you are kind of paying 3 cards to deal 7 damage, so it is very close to a swinging web kick. But if you have another way, there's the, I forget what the name of the card is, but like the attack event where you like deal 3 or 4 damage or something for 2. But if it's the first event you played, it returns to your hand. Obviously, again, up on the screen. Comboing that with Decisive Blow means that you can deal the damage, or not, there's the thwarting event. So I got my lines all crossed here. You have the thwart event, does the same thing, removes, I think, 3 threat. If it's the first thing you play, it goes back to your hand, which then you can use to pay for Decisive Blow. You can deal 7 damage. It's all great. I love the way that Gamora's designed. I think it's so clever in the fact that you make an attack, you remove a threat. You do a thwart, you do an attack, you deal a damage. It is very fun. It all melts together. I think that's why I think that she's a good new player hero. She just sort of like helps you to do things, and she kind of makes it so that you can nickel and dime. You can buy yourself some extra turns, and then you get cool cards like this where if you can just bring the peanut butter and the jelly together, you can get 7 damage. And yeah, I just love it. It just makes me feel good when I'm doing it, and that's why I love Decisive Blow. Moving on to my number 2, we have out of the Drax pack, we have the 1-cost event Intimidation. It is a thwart event, or it is thwart traded. It has the hero action of thwart, remove X threat from a scheme where X is equal to your attack. So not only if you have the ability to just bump up your attack in general, this can do even better, but then as you're just doing Drax's gimmick, you're getting the rage counters or whatever it is, and your attack's getting stronger, then you just take that attack and turn it into a bunch of threat removal. This is great for when you're going into the twilight turns of the game, and you're just ready to stick it out. You're going to do what it takes, and you're just going to make it happen. And yeah, I just love this card. It's so funny, the fact that Drax just uses his big attack to kind of thwart schemes. And I think this topped my list for Drax as like his most thematic card, but now it's also made the list as my favorite Drax card. Because yeah, the next card is not it's not a Drax card at all, but that is my number 2, and yeah, I just love it. So let's move into my number 1. there's a hero that's been missing from all of this, and that is, of course, Star-Lord. And the number one card of the day is going to be Star-Lord's card out of his hero pack, Sliding Shot, a 3-cost event attack. Play only if you control an element gun, which you should have access to pretty easily because I believe you just go grab one during setup. Has hero action of attack, deal 5 damage to an enemy, deal 2 additional damage to that enemy for each face-down encounter card in front of you. The big gimmick with Star-Lord is that he wants to try to collect encounter cards. This is obviously dangerous, but my man Star-Lord loves to live dangerously, and this is the epitome of it, because you can turn those extra encounter cards into more and more damage. I like that this has no upper limit. I don't know that I've ever cracked 9, or maybe it was 11. I think I've gotten to the point where I've had 3 encounter cards in front of me when I've played this. I don't know that I've gotten more than that. There is easily going to be a way so that you can set this up to just take out an entire stage of a villain in one shot with Sliding Shot. People out there absolutely have done it. I assume that Minnesota local SDX, if he plays Star-Lord, I imagine that he's probably dealt a bunch of damage. There's probably several of the hosts from the Winning Hand that have. If they play Star-Lord, I imagine they've done this. They are the spikes that just will do that, I think. But yeah, overall, I think this is such a fun card. I think that Star-Lord it's not my favorite hero of the wave, but I think he's definitely in the top half. I mean, we're talking about 6 heroes, but I would say that he's probably my number 3. I love Gamora. I really like Venom. It's kind of a toss-up between Star-Lord and Drax at that point, and I think I put Star-Lord just a little bit above. It's hard. Again, Gamora, Venom, Star-Lord, and Drax, I think could probably all swap around in the top 4 pretty quickly. This week, as we are making our way through each one of the wave's different hero packs, we have reached the Rise of Red Skull wave, aka wave number 2. And as such, we are looking at the heroes of Spider-Woman, Hawkeye, Ant-Man, Wasp, Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver. I would say for this wave, I don't think about... It's funny. As time goes on, I think about each older wave less and less. I love Thor and I love Ms. Marvel from the initial stuff, and obviously there's the core set. But I don't really think about a lot of the other heroes from that wave, and I don't really think about a lot of heroes from this wave that often. But then, as I was looking back at this list, I was realizing just how much I love pretty much every one of these heroes for different reasons, and that made this list extremely hard. Trying to come up with a top 10, I think I ended up listing off 17 before having to decide how to chop them all down. This was a very difficult list because, as I've said before in other waves, I do think that a lot of heroes have a lot of 6 and 7 out of 10s, and then they have a couple of those that rise above and become 8s, 9s, and there probably is a 10 out of 10 card in a kit that I absolutely love, and that's probably scour my number ones for potential 10 out of 10s. But this was hard because I felt like once I had found a list of cards I liked, it just became very hard to really jockey for position outside of, I think, my top 3. My top 3 were pretty well ingrained, but the other 7 are not going to be that simple. And I'm just putting that right out there because, as I've said with a couple of the other lists, these positions could probably change day to day. Just depending on what mood I'm in, or what if I just played with one of these heroes, it could mean that one of them gets bumped up a lot. And it even pains me the fact that I can't include more cards from some of these heroes because I wholeheartedly love them so much. But that is enough blathering. I've already filled almost 2 minutes. I've already filled more than 2 minutes just telling you how much I love this wave and love these heroes. So let's get into it and start talking about my top 10. And we'll start with my number 10, which is out of the Quicksilver hero pack. We have Maximum Velocity, a 2-cost event, superpower traded, max 1 per phase, and it has the hero action of you get +2 thwart, +2 attack, and +2 defense until the end of the round. Now this is important because Quicksilver has the ability to ready back up once per turn. So when you exhaust him, I think when you use one of his basic powers, it's up on the screen, but basically you have the ability to ready him up an additional time, which means that any bonuses you give to him are just going to carry over, and that can make Quicksilver into a very powerful hero. He is a hero that I know a lot of people who have played with him will generally use to basically like be the nuclear option in some ways, and this is one of those cards that helps with that. He has upgrades that unfortunately are not making this list, that bump up his stats, statically bump up his stats. And those are really good too. And I feel like those are kind of in a similar place to last week when I gave honorable mentions to 2 of Gamora's events. I feel like those could be an honorable mention. Just the 3 of them together as a package. I think there's 3 of them. I don't believe there's like a recovery one. But either way, yeah, bumping up his defense, his thwart, his attack. Those could all kind of be a package, honorable mention. But maximum velocity is just great because I am very biased. I like cards that tell a story. And even in response to my last episode where I was talking about the Galaxy's Most Wanted, it was brought up that some people like the Iliad, some people like multi-gun because they're so powerful. And I think after some introspection, I realized like what I take away from, or what delineates a card that is kind of creates an orbit around it and is too powerful versus a card that is like a story maker like this is I think it comes down to events versus cards that stay in play. I want to say permanent cards, but that's already a term in this game. But basically upgrades and supports. If upgrades and supports stay in play and they can just be exhausted to do their thing, it does sort of create a gravity around them that kind of centralizes the game around them. Whereas an event allows it to be an event. It allows it to be a story, and I think that's just where my bias starts to go towards. So maximum velocity is very powerful, very strong, and really just makes for those turns that you remember and you're excited about. And that's why it made the list. Moving on to my number 9. I feel like this is maybe the most based card I could come up with, but we have out of the Rise of Red Skull box, out of Hawkeye's kit, we have Hawkeye's Bow. A 0-cost upgrade with restricted, meaning you can only have 2 restricted cards per player, and your hero gets a +1 attack, and each of your arrow attacks gain ranged. Ranged attacks ignore, retaliate. This is core to what Hawkeye is trying to do. But what I really love about it is that without needing to put ranged onto every one of his attack events, his offense, onto every single one of his arrows, you can just have it on here. It bumps up his natural attack. I believe he only has 1 attack. But really what you care about more is just using his arrows. His arrows take up most of his kit and just letting them do their thing. And it's hard to not appreciate Hawkeye's Bow, because then I also think that giving ranged open up part of the kind of like design archetypes that we've seen recently, where I think one of them was called like Overwhelming Force or something. It was out of the Age of Apocalypse wave. There was a basic event for 0 that like basically gave you +2 on damage for attacks that have different keywords, and obviously ranged is one of them. But just being able to have ranged on all of your stuff, I believe this also extends to something like Sharpshooter. I will have that up on screen just to clarify if I'm correct. I believe that's correct. That if you have ranged, the attacks can also utilize that. But there's not too much more to say. This is a pretty basic card. There's not a lot going on, but I do think that just having those extra little things, making his attack a little bit better, giving his attacks ranged. Obviously, you need, I believe you need the bow. No, you need the bow to use his attacks. So this is kind of crucial. My only nitpick with how this card works is just that in his alter ego form, you have to pay a resource to put it into your hand. And at that point, it's cost 0, so you put it into play, whatever. But it feels like just next step of like, okay, so is there a reason why I wouldn't just put this into play? I don't know. I really enjoy Hawkeye's Bow. Obviously, it does a lot of stuff for Hawkeye, but it just makes for a good time, and it has some kind of interesting additional text to it. Speaking of Hawkeye, we're rounding out his cards that make the list, unfortunately, with Explosive Arrow, a 1-cost event, arrow traded hero action of exhaust Hawkeye's bow and choose a player, deal 3 damage to the villain and each minion engaged with that player. This is such a powerful effect, and it's so inexpensive. Especially if you can get it into the quiver, so it's just sitting there, it doesn't even take up space in your hand, but just being able to exhaust his bow, choose a player, deal 3 damage for 1. Again, there is a cost. You are limiting the amount of arrows you get to shoot every turn, but the ability to deal 3 damage to the villain and each minion engaged with a player usually costs more than this. And it just makes it into a card that is deceptively powerful. I like a lot of his bow. I like a lot of his arrows. Unfortunately, no more make the list. And so this is going to be the end of our arrow discussion. But yeah, just the way that his bow, the way that his quiver, and the way that his arrows work are so interesting. This is my favorite of his arrows. And I think it's just because it can do the most damage. I do like his one that can thwart and avoids all the different circumstances that would prevent you from thwarting. But this one won out in my consideration. The other one was in that 17 that I had originally picked out. Next up at my number 7, we have the 2-cost event out of the Wasp pack, Wasp Sting. It is an attack traded card with hero action attack. If you are in giant form, deal a total of 4 damage divided among enemies as you choose. Hero action attack. If you are in tiny hero form, deal 5 damage to an enemy. So Wasp and Ant-Man were very hard for me to decide because so many of their cards kind of overlap in maybe not utility, but in kind of my mind. When I think of Wasp, I think of a hero that has 3 different forms, obviously alter ego and then giant and tiny, but she's one that you almost kind of build your entire deck around the form that you plan to be in the most, whereas Ant-Man you're kind of incentivized to want to be switching back and forth a lot. And Wasp Sting I think stood out the most in my mind because I am very partial to her tiny form, and the ability to just deal 5 damage for 2 is really good. She has her event, I think it costs 1, that when you go to use one of your basic powers in hero form, you switch to giant form and you get +2. That, I think if I was more partial to giant form, I think that would have taken this spot. But because I enjoy tiny form so much, obviously this does have a use in giant form. But Wasp Sting to me always deals 5. I'm so often in tiny form, taking advantage of that it is the card that when I think of the Wasp, this is the card that I think of most. Additionally, I was very close to just putting Pym Particles on this list, which would have actually come from both Heroes kits. Again, I think that was in the top 17. I don't remember, but it was definitely one where I looked at it and I went, oh yeah, that could definitely be on the list. But either way, I love Wasp Sting. I love its efficiency. I love that it is modal, so that you can, if you need to, you can just kind of take out a bunch of small things or just hit the villain, break its tough, maybe hit 3 damage to a minion that you're not worried about. Obviously, guard does come into play here. But either way, that's Wasp Sting. Love it. And let's move on to my number 6. And my number 6 and my number 5 could literally be swapped in the moment. These were maybe the closest 2 cards. But my number 6 is the 2-cost event out of the Spider-Woman Hero Pack, which comes with the Rise of Red Skull. It is Pheromones, a superpower traded card with hero action, stun and confuse an enemy. Pretty simple. And this card is both a Spider-Woman card and a leadership card. An interesting thing about Spider-Woman is that she has cards in her kit that are actually specific aspect cards, but they're also part of her hero kit. Pheromones is a fun card. I think the one thing that sort of allowed my number 5 to edge it out is just that it costs 2, and while this is a very powerful effect, it does also feel like it doesn't feel powerful. It is powerful. It is effective. It doesn't feel that way because it doesn't feel like it does anything when you first play it, and it really pays off over the course of the next turn or 2. But being able to just, especially if you're talking about the enemy, just being able to shut down their activation no matter what it's going to be. You put a stun, you put a confuse, they're not attacking, they're not scheming either this turn and maybe the next 2 villain phases. You put it onto a problematic enemy that you're not concerned about. I like how this interacts with God, I never remember the name of the keyword, but that all the aim, not all the aim minions, that aim minions kind of come with it. I imagine we'll see more where basically if they become stunned or confused, you just discard them. This actually interacts really well with that. But yeah, I like pheromones. It's a fun effect. It's interesting that it's leadership. It doesn't necessarily feel like a leadership effect. Unless I'm completely missing something, but I also can kind of blame that on the early parts of the design. They just kind of put this into an aspect that they felt like it might work, but I don't know if it totally you've totally sold me on the fact that this is a leadership effect. But either way, that's pheromones. Next up, we have my number 5, which is Inconspicuous, also out of Spider-Woman's pack. It is a 1-cost event, skill and thwart traded. Hero action thwart, remove a total of 3 threat from among schemes in play. So I feel like while someone like Wasp really is the face of spreading out damage in terms of it being a hero, where you can sit there and dole out much damage, I don't really feel like we see a lot of this remove X threat from among any number of schemes. I know there is a Justice card, I think Nova's on it if memory serves, that I think removes either 5 or 7. I don't remember. I will certainly put it up on screen. But yeah, just this effect for 1 feels really good. Just being able to remove 3 threat for 1, already good. You want to remove threat from multiple places just to keep them in check, even better. And yeah, just overall, I think this is such a fun card. I think that it's being inexpensive is what edged it out over pheromones, although this was hard. I sat there and really was like, okay, what is my number 5? What is my number 6? And Inconspicuous just kind of won out. I love that it's a Justice card while also being a Spider-Woman card. It's a weird thing they did there that I feel like I'm surprised we have not seen since, that there isn't another hero that also has kind of this overlapping like aspect but also hero card thing. That definitely bleeds into what Spider-Woman does, but either way, that is my number 5. Moving on to my number 4, we have out of the Ant-Man pack, Army of Ants, a 1-cost support, Ants and Tiny traded, and it has the hero action of if you are in tiny form, exhaust Army of Ants, deal 1 damage to an enemy. This doesn't feel that powerful, but the important thing is this is not an attack. It is not affected by stun. There are other things like I think this sort of gets around part of the Venom scenario because Venom is looking for attacks to have happened to him. But then when the bell is ringing during his scenario, whenever he takes damage, he takes additional damage. So not only does this avoid him getting, I believe, an extra boost card, or a boost card gets tucked under you, and then he gets the boost cards when he goes to attack you or activate against you. Not only does this avoid him getting boost cards, but this also suddenly becomes exhaust, deal 2 damage. And because Ant-Man wants to swap between forms so often, you're very much finding yourself in, okay, I'm in tiny form, hit him with the Army of Ants, switch to giant form, do whatever I'm going to do there, do whatever I'm going to do in giant form, switch back down to tiny form, do the Army of Ants, like just over and over again. This becomes something that just is a constant pinging of damage. And it doesn't feel like it does a lot, but once you're sort of in that world, once you're sort of doing it, it adds up so quickly and you're doing so much damage, and it's inconspicuous, but at the same time, it's really fun. And I feel like I'd be very hard pressed to not include this somewhere on the list because it is just a deceptively good card. Moving into my number 3, we have another Ant-Man card. We have the 3-cost upgrade Ant-Man's Helmet, which is armor and tech traded. Hero response, after you change to giant form, heal 2 damage from your hero. Hero response, after you change to tiny form, draw 1 card. Now, because he has the ability to do, I think it's resize, where he can just, for 0, change from one form to another. I think that even includes going to alter ego. Let me have the cards right here. Oh, sorry, hero action, yeah, resizes hero action, change to your other hero form, draw a card. So, but because he's able to sort of like make contact with multiple forms in a turn, and this doesn't exhaust, you can heal 2 damage, change back down to tiny form, or you can resize to change to giant form, heal 2 damage, then use your actual ability to change forms for the turn and go back down draw a card. In this exchange, you've spent a 0-cost event to draw 2 cards, and you've healed 2 damage. Let alone what he actually does just as a hero. This is such a good card. It's definitely one where I did not respect it. And then as soon as I started to hard mulligan for it, I found that I was just doing better in games. And no surprise, healing and card advantage are good. That doesn't seem like a shock to anybody. It's definitely a lesson I needed to learn. I think I took for granted card advantage early on because you draw so many cards. But the ability to just get extra cards and the ability to heal back up and keep your life total means that you're not going to Alter Ego. Going to Alter Ego is still good. You get additional cards automatically. You are avoiding several things. You are drawing extra cards. You have I think when you switch to Alter Ego form, you can heal a damage. So all these things are good. A-Man's a very well-rounded hero. He's like the Mario of Smash Brothers, of Marvel Champions characters. But this is just such a good card that I did not respect. And as soon as I started to really play with it, it was hard to not just wholeheartedly love it. And let's move on to my number 2, which is out of the Scarlet Witch pack. It is the 3-cost event, Molecular Decay. It is attack and spell traded. Spell, oh my gosh. Is that relevant now? I don't know if that means anything. I feel like it could. And I'm just forgetting something that came out of like Magic. Wow. Okay, I gotta think that over. But okay, sorry. What does this card do? This card is a hero action attack. Deal 5 damage to an enemy and discard the top 2 cards of the encounter deck. Oh my gosh, with Falcon now, this could be so good. Okay, for each boost icon discarded this way, deal 1 additional damage to that enemy. This is maybe the story maker of story maker cards for me. That feels like a bold statement, but at the same time feels completely accurate. I love this card. It is so much fun. It can definitely... It's a story maker in the fact that it might deal 5 damage. You might deal nothing with the additional boost cards. Or it might deal 11. That's the range. You're either dealing 5 or you're dealing 11. And you might deal somewhere within that, or you might deal more than that. If you start to put Thunderbolts into your deck, not like you're outside of the actual Thunderbolt scenario, you just got the elite minions and you've put them in the modular encounter sets in, suddenly that means you could deal 4 damage off of one of those cards. Molecular Decay is such a cool card. I love it. It is the story maker card of all story maker cards. It just looks sweet. It's got a Sentinel on it that's being destroyed. And yeah, I have destroyed a number of Sentinels with this. I think I wiped out an entire stage of Master Mold in like one swoop with this. I love it. It's great. And yet it's not my number 1. My number 1 is one of my favorite cards in the entire game. And that is the 2-cost event, Hexbolt, out of the Scarlet Witch pack. It is spell and superpower traded, has the hero action of discard the top 3 cards of the encounter deck. For each card discarded this way that has boost icons equal to 0, deal 2 damage to an enemy. 1, remove 2 threat from a scheme. 2, draw a card. 3 plus, place a status card on a character. This is the flowchart card of the game. Like, there are so many different directions this can go in. Your ability to basically substitute one of those cards and say, hey, I got a 0, but I don't really want to deal 2 damage. Let me re-roll that. Obviously, you're playing with chaos. Anything can happen. But this is just so good. On the first turn, this may not be the best card in the world because there may not be the threat needed. You may be looking to draw cards and deal damage when you're not going to do that. The ability to get 3 boost icon or more cards and suddenly go, okay, I'm going to take a tough, but I'm also going to give the villain a stun. Like, it just allows you to basically draw those 3 cards and really figure out what is going to be the best thing I can do with all this. And it's just so much fun. It makes for electrifying moments. It makes for moments when you could go big or just drop like a hat or drop like a nail. This is definitely like the God's my witness. I thought turkeys could fly. I thought we could win this, and I just dropped like a bag of wet cement. It is so much fun. It makes me laugh even when I do poorly. It makes me laugh when everything goes really well, and it makes me laugh when I just fail completely. But yeah, I love Hexbolt. It is one of my favorite cards in the game. My favorite cards in the game might be a long list of 20 cards, but it's definitely on that list. It's probably in the top 10. It might be in the top 5. I'm not sure. Hello everybody and welcome to another top 10 video in the list series looking at the top 10 hero cards coming out of the Wave 1 heroes. So after some consensus from the audience of my last video, we came to the conclusion that we are just going to do the core set in its own video. So in this video, we are looking at Captain America, Miss Marvel, Thor, Black Widow, Doctor Strange, and the Hulk. And so we're just going to be restricting it to those 6 heroes. I actually will say that having done both of these lists, this was actually hard, and I feel like it's hard as a byproduct of just being the early designs. There was a lot of what felt like, in retrospect, a lot of like 6 out of 10s. This might be the 2 hardest lists I've come up with thus far. These are easily the 2 hardest lists for this particular category of hero cards, simply because it was so neck and neck, and actually a little difficult to like come up with 10, only because of my first run through, I kept assuming there will be a card higher than this card in Captain America's pack, and that just was not the case. And that's not to say that these are bad cards, it's just that I think that with some time removed, they just don't feel as exciting as, you know, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. cards or, you know, Next Evolution cards. But let's just get right to the list. I do think I still enjoy these cards, and I still I'm happy that a lot of these cards exist because I think they're really fun and interesting, but we won't waste any more time. Let's get into my number 10, which is out of the Hulk hero pack, and that is Limitless Strength. And this is pretty basic. Actually, it's very, very basic. It is just a resource card that generates physical, and you can only spend it in hero form. To me, only being able to spend it in hero form is very thematic. That definitely put it into the top 10. I think the ability to only use it in hero form, an easy 10, because you do need a restriction, but at the same time, the Hulk is just such a, I don't want to say bad hero, but he has so many weights already that he's got to kind of fighting, you know, like Vegeta holding back the weights, the character from Naruto holding back the weights, God, what's his name? Something Lee. But either way, the Hulk already has enough things going against him, and the fact that his resource card that fits very well into what he's trying to do. His cards want him to use physical resources exclusively. This is your way to do it. And of course, a lot of those cards are hero cards. They're hero actions in some form or fashion. So it's not like this is really that much of a hindrance. But it's just that one time when you're in Alter Ego and you'd really love to just get the Quinn Carrier out with your Limitless Strength, but you can't. And that's just rough. And so that's why it falls pretty easily to number 10 for me. It's just there are other cards that are better that just outrated. And, you know, why not have a resource and why not have it be at number 10? Moving on to my number 9, we have out of the Captain America pack, Shield Toss. A 0-cost event with the attack and superpower traits. Hero action attack, discard X cards from your hand, then return Captain America's shield from play to your hand, deal 4 damage to X enemies. I like this card so much. As I was putting together the list, I was actually surprised how quickly it fell to my number 9, and I think it's because the ceiling is very, very high for this card. You could deal 4 damage to like 6 characters, but I mean, maybe that's extending it a little too much. Maybe it's a little too much hyperbole, but in reality, it definitely does a lot for you. But you're talking more often, you're hitting like the villain and 2 minions. And the nice restriction here is that this is not restricted to just like a player. Like, it's not like you have to pick a player and you have to choose all those enemies from the villain and characters engaged with that player. But I've just found that I suppose maybe in multiplayer games this could be better, but it never reaches the same level of incredible that the ceiling kind of makes it, or my imagination goes, oh, I could do this, and this. Like, those things, they just don't happen enough. It's just not a thing that it actually happens. It's all just like Magical Christmas Land, and unfortunately, that's why at the end of the day, as much as I want to love this card, and I do, it's in my top 10 for a reason, but it falls down because I just know in my heart that the cards that I love above this are going to actually like pay off in ways that Shield Toss just, it falls short, unfortunately. Moving on to my number 8, and I believe this is the only card from this hero pack, we've got Magical Enhancements out of the Doctor Strange pack. It is a 1-cost upgrade with condition and spell traits. Play under any player's control. Your hero gets +1 thwart, +1 attack, and +1 defense. Forced interrupt when the round ends, discard Magical Enhancements. I think this is such a cool card, and I really wish that we had effects like this. Unless I'm wrong, I don't think we have anything like this in any other hero pack. I don't think we have anything like this in an aspect. I suppose you could say that there's, and I could be misremembering this. There probably are leadership events that boost a hero stats. But I don't believe it's one where you can, I think it would only be, you can just do it to yourself. You can't do it to other heroes. If I'm wrong, I will absolutely do a minimum amount of research here. Now that I'm saying this out loud, to just like put it up on screen if it exists. But I don't believe we have another effect like this. I think that's so cool. What hurts this card is that it's out of Doctor Strange. And I just don't care for Doctor Strange. I've never really jived with his play pattern. And that also means that I don't get to use this. I'm not the one in the pilot seat to be using this for other people in multiplayer. And going to Con of Heroes, I've never seen Doctor Strange brought out in the game. And I wish I was more involved in the Minneapolis play groups and everything out of like Discord and et cetera, et cetera. And that's on me. That's on me. But like, I wish I was more involved. But I still think that at the end of the day, Doctor Strange is a elusive enough character. He's an old enough character. I don't know that people really play with Doctor Strange, so I've never got to see this card be awesome. It's always in my mind. It's always in two-handed solo, and it's just never been the card I want it to be. It's so cool though. It feels like it should be great. And play under any player's control. Omnibus. It goes away at the end of the turn. But it falls short because it's just not a card that I've actually seen do anything. It's all hype with no sauce. Moving on to my number 7, and I feel like this is the point when we turn and we start to go towards the cards that I'm very deeply ingrained with, the ones that really just kind of like they earned their spot. And that starts off with number 7, which is Dance of Death out of the Black Widow pack. It is a 3-cost event with the attack trait. Hero action, make the following attacks in any order. Deal 1 damage to an enemy, deal 2 damage to an enemy, deal 3 damage to an enemy. So as I brought up in my new player guide for Black Widow, this is just cool because you can, for 3, do 6. That's not great, but it's something that you could do. You could do straight to the villain, just 6 damage. Or you could take out a minion. You could take out another minion. You could hit the villain. And any combination of that. You could deal 3 to a minion here and 3 to the villain, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Break the tough on the villain. Deal 2 damage to a minion. Deal 3 damage to the villain because you are doing the attacks in that order. So tough would fall off. And I think I talked about this last week, but just the ability to kind of have these cards that just form these flow charts. It's like, what decision are you going to make? How are we going to make this into an interesting game? And I feel like that's what, especially a character like Black Widow. A character like Black Widow is so interesting to me because, yes, it is very information focused. I cannot pilot the everything is a preparation deck. I just don't have it in me. Probably if I was in my mid-20s, I could, but watching her get played, even piloting her, and even just having 2 or 3 preparations out. Lord help me, what's going to happen with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. with even more preparations. I haven't gone down that route since my new player guide, which didn't even have all the preparations. But just, this is emblematic of Black Widow's ability to just be an infinite amount of choices at any moment. Okay, that thing's gonna be a problem. Let's preparation it away. Let's get rid of that effect. Let's put this card on the bottom of the encounter deck, whatever have you. And That starts with Dance of Death. That starts with the ability to just go, okay, I am going to take out 3 minions right here, just line them up, get them into, I guess, get them into Dance of Death range. I'm falling more and more in love with getting things into Winter Soldier range or Bucky range. It's like, oh, it's got 2 health left. Let me take it out. Let me remove some threat. I love this card. It just is so much fun, and it just makes for really fun moments where it's like, oh, we thought we had a guard minion in our way. And he's gone, and also let's dome the villain for 3. Moving on to my number 6, we have another Hulk card out of his hero pack. We have Hulk Smash, a 3-cost event, superpower, hero interrupt. When you make a basic attack, you get +10 to that attack. If you paid for this card using only physical resources, this attack gains overkill. I love this card so much. I love the ability to just go like, I'm going to attack for 13. It's going to have overkill, and it's just going to take an entire stage of the villain away. It's going to just delete that stage of the villain. I think, if memory serves, he's only got 1 of these. Maybe he has 2. I don't remember. And it's easily the card out of Hulk's pack that just makes me go, I do not like Hulk a lot, but when I'm playing Hulk Smash, I love Hulk. It's just so emblematic, it's so thematic, and it tells a story. And if nothing else, you can tell my favorite cards are always going to be the ones that tell the stories. What are the cards where you're sitting around, it's 10 p.m., you're leaving the store, and you're just like, gosh, I can't believe I got to like take this villain down from 20 to 0 with magic. Or I can't believe that Hulk just came in, took out the first stage of Rhino in like 2 turns, and then the rest of the table just swarmed him, and he was just gone. Rhino's probably a bad example. Everyone who gets their feet under them can beat Rhino. Everyone who's played the game twice cannot defeat Rhino. But once you get your feet under you, you're not the most impressive player. But yeah, just this is such a fun card. It kind of feels like it's, in some ways, it's a Deadpool card, because you have this card as fire or maximum effort, which basically do the same thing, but just utilize different mechanics to make that happen. But yeah, this is a story card. I love it. And it barely missed my top 5, but let's get into that top 5. At number 5, we have Captain America's Shield out of the Captain America pack. It is a 1-cost upgrade, item traded, restricted. You can only have 2 restricted cards per player, and Captain America gets +1 defense and +1 retaliate. What caught my eye immediately was being able to give retaliate. I've talked about before how retaliate feels like a villain ability that the heroes get to dip their toe into every once in a while. But this just makes it so that it's innocuous. It doesn't seem like it's doing a lot. It gives you an extra bit of defense, and it gives you retaliate 1. But that can sometimes make the difference. There are some villains that especially, and of course I'm coming at this from a standard mindset, but they have 1 attack. So they might deal 3 damage if they get the right boost. They might, which means that they're not dealing anything to you if you defend. And if you defend, this sets you up. Obviously, you can also have the protection upgrade that gives you +1 defense. So it's something you've got 4. But like this just sets Captain America up that if he wants to play a perfect defense or a minimal amount of defense, or just something that can definitely utilize retaliate, just breaking toughs and just I'm defending to deal damage. This just sets him up so well to do that, and it's in his pack. And obviously, it's also Captain America's Shield. Everyone loves Captain America's Shield. It's right up there with Mjolnir as some of the most iconic Marvel items, just in all of the comics. And Captain America's Shield is like a calling card, and I love it. And so both for the lore, for the flavor, thematics, and for just what it's doing, this is just one of my favorite cards, especially out of this wave. Moving on to my number 4, and this might be a little controversial, it might be kind of a dark horse here. Oh, and it's not my only card out of this pack, but out of the Thor pack, we have the 0-cost event, Defender of the Nine Realms. It is an event, it has the Thwart trait, and hero action Thwart, discard cards from the top of the encounter deck until you discard a minion, put that minion into play, engage with you, remove 3 threat from scheme. This is kind of crucial, I feel, to Thor. He definitely loves minion summoning, and he definitely needs the ability to remove threat. And being able to hit any scheme with this is great because the Looking for Trouble only hits the main scheme, and there really isn't anything else to kind of compare this to. This is a card that there's cards modeled after it, but this is kind of in its own league. So not only is this going to remove 3 threat from a scheme, which Thor needs, but it's, if nothing else, either you drew into this already, or this is going to draw you 2 cards, because his Have At the ability is going to enable him to draw 2 cards off the minion that you found. You definitely need to be careful. You definitely don't want to do this when there's only like 5 cards left, because there might not be any minions in there. There are scenarios where this is a dead card. The Thunderbolt scenario, there's only 1 minion in there. So it's not a dead card, but you might just take out the entire deck and wow, now you have, what's her name, Jolt or whatever? No, now you have Jolt out. Great. She cannot be defeated, or she adds threat, and you drew 2 cards, but what are we going to do? How are we going to manage this? So yeah, there are some scenarios that just nuke this card. But the scenarios that this is just a thwarting card, I think this is a really interesting thwarting card. It plays into what Thor's trying to do. It is thematic. It's not just like, pay 1, remove 2. I think that wouldn't feel right for Thor. He should be thwarting by bringing in minions. He should be ready to brawl, ready to take out his earrings and just like have his friend hold him back. But yeah, this is such a great card. It felt like a card that when I first discovered it, I was like, I don't know about this. But the more I play it, the more I'm just like, this is like one of my favorite cards. And I just love it. And I'm so happy that Thor gets to be the defender of the 9 realms. Moving to my number 3, we have our first Captain Marvel card. Not Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel. Out of the Miss Marvel pack, we have Embiggen. It is a 2-cost upgrade with the condition and superpower trait. It has the hero interrupt of, when you play an attack event, exhaust Embiggen, increase the amount of damage that event deals by 2. This is very innocuous, and Sneak By, or whatever it is, the one that does the thwarting, is not on this list. These are kind of neck and neck. These could very well be honorable mentions or just both of them in the slot, but because they both do really cool things. But I think Embiggen is really cool because that 2 damage generally means more than that extra threat removal. Not always. Sometimes being the Justice player and being able to just remove 6 threat from a scheme is great, but this just makes anything that Miss Marvel does, you bump it up by 2. Maybe you exhaust Miss Marvel to bring that event back and do it again. And yeah, just overall, I love this card. Cards are balanced around what they're doing. And when you suddenly just add 2 to the amount of damage, it's like that becomes an unbalanced card. And yeah, I love it. I think this is such a cool card. And I love that this was an effect that they put in. I love that there is the attack version and there's the thwart version so that you kind of get the same thing. Both thwart events and attack events are they're balanced around their costs and everything. But this is just both of those cards, and especially Embiggen, just take that and dial it up to 11, and that's why it's my number 3. Moving on to my number 2, we have another Miss Marvel card, and that is Wiggle Room, a 0-cost event, defense superpower, hero interrupt. When you would take any amount of damage, prevent 3 of that damage, draw a card. This could have been my number 1. I very much wanted to make this my number 1. It was neck and neck to the end. This is probably the closest 2 spots in the entire list. But Wiggle Room is such a cool card. Not only does it enable you to, okay, so you've readied back up, an attack comes, you use this to just prevent 3 damage, draw a card, you exhaust Miss Marvel to just bring it back, and you do the same thing on the next player's turn. So now you've prevented 3 damage to 2 players. You've drawn 2 cards to replace the Wiggle Room and more. Presumably, no one's taken any damage, especially early in the game, early in the game's history. Like I said with Captain America's Shield, preventing 3 damage can be the entire villain phase. You don't have to worry about any damage. All that damage is spoken for. This also takes a hero that has pretty low health and just gives them that extra amount of time. She loves going Alter Ego, but she doesn't need to go Alter Ego because you have the ability to just prevent 3 damage out of nowhere. And yeah, it's great. It is one of my favorite cards in the game. Like, for as much as I kind of said that this wave had a lot of 6s, this also has some cards that they might in power level be 7s, but they're still some of my favorite cards in the game. And Wiggle Room is definitely up there. But let's talk about my number one, because like I said, it was a close one. My number one is Lightning Strike. And it's irrational. It probably should be Hammer Throw, but it's Lightning Strike. Lightning Strike is a one-cost event, superpower traded with the hero action of spend X energy resources, deal X damage to the villain and each minion engaged with you. This attack ignores tough status cards if you have the aerial trait, which you're going to get by having Mjolnir. This very, very similar to Shield Toss. Has a very high ceiling and a very, very low floor. Oh, I can't even remember. It's such a bad card. It like costs 2 and it deals 1 damage to each the villain and each minion engaged with you, or each enemy or whatever. Has She-Hulk on it. I'll put it up. It's up on screen. It can be that bad. And there are times when I was up against Ultron, I kind of like wanted more of those because it's so powerful in that scenario. But in most scenarios, that's nothing. But the times when you're dealing 6 to each minion and the villain, that's more damage than you probably ever need in most scenarios. But the fact that you can say, I dealt 6 damage to the villain and each minion engaged with me, and if you have any form of taking advantage of additional damage, whatever that's called, the damage. I don't remember, but there are cards. There are cards that say, hey, if you deal, additional damage over the overkill damage but maybe you don't have overkill. Do X. This is a card that can just explode. I have had just so many stories happen from this, and they're good stories and they're bad stories. I lightning striked for 2 and didn't really do anything, but I was definitely a part of the team. And then there are ones where it's like I lightning striked for 5 or 6 and just annihilated everything involved with me. I did the get over here card to just pull something over, and then I just lightning striked, and it was wild. I love this card. It is my number one. Like I said, it could have been Wiggle Room. Hello, everybody, and welcome to what is, for the foreseeable future, my last installment of top 10 videos involving the cards out of the hero kits of each wave. And this week, we are talking exclusively about the core set. So, Spider-Man, Captain Marvel, Iron Man, Black Panther, and She-Hulk. And I am excited to have this over with. I don't know that I necessarily have a lot of other top 10s in mind. I want to do one every week, if possible. But this has taken up it's taken up more than 2 months of my life. And I'm finally here, and we are here to count them all down. I will say right off the bat, this, like my last video, I will say, this was a hard list to put together. I think just because I'm very acquainted with all these cards, and by comparison to later waves, these do feel like a lot of 5 and 6 out of 10s, with a couple like 7 and 8s kind of rising to the top. But I was surprised how often I was looking through cards and going, you know what, I like this She-Hulk card, but I don't know it's going to make my top 10. I bet there's going to be something in like Spider-Man or Captain Marvel, and how frequently it was like, yeah, no, this is going to be very even-keeled. There's plenty of room for everybody to be represented. And yeah, I want to get into it, so we won't waste any more time. But this was not the easiest list to put together because it was just all like there was just a plateau of enjoyment that I get out of this. This is also my own opinions. Please, in the comments, put down what is your favorite card from the core set in the hero packs. But without any further ado, let's get into my number 10. And that is Superhero Law Division, which is a 1-cost support with the location trait and is the alter ego action of thwart, exhaust Superhero Law Division, and spend a genius resource or a mental resource. Remove 2 threat from a scheme. What I like about this, and I feel like it set a precedent for the game that I don't really feel like this paid off a lot. There are examples of this, like J. Jonah Jameson isn't explicitly this, but is similar to this. And we do see stuff from like Gambit's pack, and probably, if I thought about it long enough, other heroes that do this. In Alter Ego, you have the ability to remove threat. She-Hulk is kind of built around introducing that concept, and I have to wonder, because I know at one point there were going to be 5 aspects in the game, and they got, one of them got removed just for complexity. I know it's been debated which hero would have been kind of the hero that would have represented that. In the back of the manual, like, here are some example decks. And I think it's always been kind of up in the air whether Black Panther or She-Hulk would have been the one that took it. I think the general consensus amongst the community is that Black Panther may have done it. Maybe I have that wrong. Maybe I'm misremembering that. But that sticks out of my mind that the consensus was that maybe Black Panther would have been the one that took up that banner. Either way, I think this general concept of being an alter ego, removing 2 threat, is interesting and something that we don't see a lot of. Normally when you're an alter ego, you don't really have much way to deal with this. But She-Hulk, even in her hero card, and I guess her hero and alter ego, just her hero identity card, her identity card itself, does point to this fact that there is a way to basically mitigate the amount of threat being put onto the main scheme while in alter ego form. And I think that's really interesting. I think that's really cool. And it's just unfortunate that that's just not something that's really kind of come to fruition. I don't know if Fantasy Flight's design team basically came to the conclusion that something akin to that would just be too powerful, or it was hard to balance, or it was hard to really find places where that fit the theme of a hero's card. But either way, I like this card just for the fact that not only will you be able to use Jennifer Walters' ability, but you'll also be able to keep the main scheme in a bit of a check. Obviously, you can remove this from any scheme, so that also means that you can get rid of smaller side schemes that come into play. I have not really tried to push into this with player side schemes. With She-Hulk, I imagine there's probably a deck that does do that pretty well. Most of the player side schemes come in with 3 threat, but either way, if you're able to be an alter ego, play down a player side scheme, remove 2 threat from it, and then switch to hero form where you're able to do something else, maybe you do use your thwarting, or maybe you just switch over and you do a thwarting event. But either way, I think this is just an interesting card that I want to highlight, and it makes the list, but unfortunately, it just didn't push me hard enough to want to put it above number 10. But still, I will say that it is definitely a 7 or 8 out of 10 amongst a sea of 5 and 6s. Next up, we have my number 9, which is Supersonic Punch out of the Iron Man hero pack. I guess, to be fair, all of these are going to be out of the core set, so I will specify which hero kit it's from. It should be obvious if you look at the art, but whatever. Supersonic Punch, which is a 2-cost event, attack traded. With the hero action attack, deal 4 damage to an enemy, 8 instead if you have the aerial trait, which you can gain from, I believe it's an upgrade he has. One of his upgrades, because Iron Man cares a lot about tech upgrades. I think you have to spend a mental resource to gain aerial. Obviously, it's up on the screen, but this is a really cool card. It's inexpensive, that deals a lot of damage. And because he has 2 copies of the card that gives him aerial, it should be reasonable that you will have aerial. That said, the times when you don't, the floor is pretty low here. Dealing only 4 damage is not great. At 2, it's fair, but at 1, it would be stupendous. But regardless, I just think that this is an interesting card. I think it lives below the curve and does something that is thematic to what Iron Man's trying to do, while also just being a pretty basic attack event. And I think that is the one thing that's holding it back, is that at its core, yes, it has interactions. Yes, it has different modes where you can take advantage of it. But at its core, it is just a very basic attack that doesn't have a lot more going for it. Like, the highest accolade for it is that it can deal a whole bunch of damage. But other than that, it's just something that attacks and does some damage. And so that's why it does not rise too much further up in my list. On to my number 8. Wow, my number 9 was very short. On to my number 8, which is Wakanda Forever out of Black Panther's kit. So this is a 1-cost event, tactic traded. Hero action, resolve the special ability on each Black Panther upgrade you control in any order. Resolving each ability is a step in this sequence. Black Panther is designed very interestingly. One, I believe he has 4 copies of Wakanda Forever, plus his 4 copies, plus the 4 cards that make up his upgrades. So half of his kit is just revolved around this concept, with the rest of it just being, the standard supports and his ally and his attack events and what have you. I think this proto version of Wakanda Forever is interesting. I think the version that we see with the Shuri Black Panther, yes, it is 5 years later, so they had a lot more time to think it over. I do think that version is more interesting, but I think that's interesting in the context of a hero that uses these Wakanda tech differently. That said, I do think that this is a fun card that you get to use a lot. It feels like what Black Panther is built around. There are times when you don't get to do this a lot, and you end up with 2 of them in your hand, and suddenly you're able to do Wakanda Forever, and you make this big splash. I think just planning out your sequences. If you've got only 1 card, that's the last card in the sequence. If you've got 2 cards, then you got this balance you need to kind of sew in there, or you need to kind of cruise through. Either way, this is a card where there are decisions to be made, and I think that it is an interesting card that makes for fun gameplay when you get to spam it over and over again. Like, I remember there was one game when I was teaching people the game, and I did Wakanda Forever 3 times. Now, that meant that the rest of my game was fairly boring because I had all these upgrades out that weren't doing anything. But that one turn when it's just like, oh, I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do that, and this and that. And it just turns into this situation where you just suddenly just turn the tide of the battle. Unfortunately, again, this is in a situation where I didn't really get to do anything with Black Panther's main gimmick up until this point. But when it's all crammed into one turn, it is very funny, and it definitely stood out in terms of like making that game feel eventful and notable. Next up, we have my number 7. This one hurt me a little bit. I wanted to put this so much higher, and then as I was breaking everything down, I realized that my number 7 is out of Spider-Man's kit, and that is Webbed Up. It is a 4-cost upgrade with the condition trait, hero form only, attached to an enemy, max 1 per enemy, and then the forced interrupt of when attached enemy would attack, discard Webbed Up instead, then stun that enemy. I think this is a really cool card. It is brought down dramatically by costing 4. Beyond that, I actually don't have any other complaints. Yeah, you can only play this in hero form. That's fine. You're Spider-Man. You can only put 1 on at a time. Okay, I think you would probably be... That's probably the designers putting their hand gently on the wheel and saying, you could do this. You could put multiple of these onto an enemy. But I think it's probably better if you don't. So we're just going to kind of force your hand so that you don't accidentally put 2 of these onto an enemy, because it sounds good, but it's probably not everything you're imagining it's going to be. We see something similar to this out of Venom's kit, and I don't remember if that was one that made my top 10 list in that wave or not, but this is definitely a really cool effect that I think is very thematic. You stop someone from attacking, then you stun them. This is a good way to get around characters that cannot be stunned. This is a good way to get around giving you an extra turn before someone like Mr. Sinister is able to add extra threat to the main scheme because he cares about getting status counters on him. And yeah, overall, this is just thematic. It's a fun card. I think it probably is worth the 4. It's just, on its face, 4 feels like a lot. And you just kind of go, I don't know about this. Maybe we do something else this turn, because this is my entire turn. Love the art. Love what it's doing. Love that it has a legacy within the game. We've seen other cards, like I said, that do something similar to this. I would actually expect that if we have more Spider characters, obviously we didn't get this with Miles or Gwen or Silk, but if we got more Web Warrior characters, I would like to see something that is parodying this a little bit. But overall, yeah, that is my number 7. Moving on to number 6, we have another Spider-Man card, and that is the 0-cost event Backflip. It has the defense and skill traits and the interrupt of when you would take any amount of damage from an attack, prevent all of that damage. What I enjoy about this is it is just a no. I'm not taking. It's not a I'm going to prevent 5 damage. I'm going to prevent 3 damage. It's just I'm preventing all of it. I am going to survive this attack. I am not taking damage. Obviously, you can lose the Power Stone to this, but whatever. Still, just in general, just the ability to go, Spider-Man is not losing to this. I'm going to still get my Spider Sense. I'm still going to get all the other advantages. This has the defense trait, so you do count as defending. You do count as not taking any damage. Like, this got better as the rules of the game sort of like came into focus, and the designers realized, hey, this is how the game should be played, and we sort of set this game up a little bit to not really think through some of the decisions, because defense worked differently at the beginning of the game. But yeah, this is just a fun card. Again, with Spider-Man cards, I want to put Spider-Man like at the top of my list as much as possible. This just kind of got edged out by other cards around it, and I just could not give it, a top 5 status. It's very close though, but yeah, it is like a 7 or 8 out of 10. And I wholeheartedly enjoy it. It is a fun card to play, And if you have been overlooking it, I don't know why you would have overlooked it, but if you've overlooked it, try it out, because it will definitely give you some really fun interactions. Next up, we have out of the She-Hulk deck, we have the 3-cost event Split Personality, which is an action, change your form, flip your identity card, because they need you to explain that during the core set, then draw up to your printed hand size. This is fun because you're going to burn up your hand, and then you're going to get your draw back up to what is probably your alter ego. The nice thing here is that you can do this at the top of your turn from hero form, change to alter ego, draw a bunch of cards, then flip back over to hero form. So not only do you get to have a nice hand size, but you get to do you lift again, or for the first time. But yeah, this is just an out of sequence form change so that you can still use your form change once per turn. You get to cycle your entire hand for the most part. And yeah, if you have a way to basically have resource generators so that you're not using up cards in your hand, that allows you to maybe play out a different card, then take your remaining resources to do this, drop a fresh hand. It feels kind of out of sync for She-Hulk. Like, Hulk characters I don't feel like are the ones that are going to have a tremendous amount of card advantage, but this kind of breaks that. It plays into the fact that, yeah, Jennifer is a smart person. You should be able to sort of like play both sides a little bit. Yeah, overall, it's just a fun card. It's thematic, and I definitely enjoy it. It's one of the reasons why I don't overlook She-Hulk. I can definitely see the criticism that she's not the best hero out of the core set, but I definitely think that she is a character that definitely gains more as the game goes on. And I think as you kind of begin to learn the ins and outs of the game, she just also improves, because I think there's a lot to She-Hulk that just was not apparent as a new player. And the more you learn about the game, the more you can kind of find little corners of what she's capable of doing to really take advantage of. Moving on, or sorry, not my number 4. Moving on to my number 4, we have another She-Hulk, and that is Gamma Slam, the 4-cost event with the attack and superpower traits. Deal X damage to an enemy to a maximum of 15. X is the amount of damage you have sustained. This, we now know with this card is fire, could cost 1 less. I think that it should probably definitely cost 1 less, because now we have a version of this that doesn't have an upper limit and just allows you to do whatever. Although, to be fair, She-Hulk also starts with enough life to take advantage of this. But I think that in a world where you should just be allowed to, put a symbiote suit on and just deal 20, I think if you are playing that version of the game where a caught off guard can just take you from 9 to 0 out of nowhere, you get some endurances out, you get symbiote suit out, I think you should be allowed to deal a crap ton of damage. And the fact that you're not able to is what holds this back. This could be my number 1 card if it just had the ability to just deal 25 damage. But I love it. It does have a little bit of the discount that I do think the cost is no longer correct. But at the same time, I think for the core set, for She-Hulk, this is thematic, it's powerful, it sends a message, and it's just a fun card to play. When you get to do it, we're just like, oh, I'm sorry, Claw, did you put me to 2? Oh yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for. It's thematic, it's fun, and I just love it as a concept and as a thing we get to do every once in a while. Moving on to my number 3, we have Crisis Interdiction, which is a 2-cost event, thwart traded, and hero action thwart, remove 2 threat from a scheme, then if you have the aerial trait, remove 2 threat from a different scheme. This just really plays into the fact that Carol is pretty good at handling multiple threats. She's actually a very good, well-rounded hero, and I think a lot of people have figured that out, but I feel like in the grand discussion of the game, I feel like for some reason Captain Marvel does not get the attention that he deserves. But I just like this card in the fact that it does what other cards do at a cost that is not that hard to meet. Giving her aerial is not... I don't remember precisely how she gets aerial. I think it's with her helmet. I'll put it up on the screen if I'm wrong. But either way, or I'll put it up on the screen even if I'm right. You'll see the card. Either way, this is not a hard bar to clear, and I think that just being able to go pay 2, remove 4 threat is just a really fun ability. It helps to just kind of keep her as a well-rounded hero. She's able to kind of play any role you need to at the table, and yeah, this is just indicative of everything that I like about Carol and just her general well-rounded nature. Moving on to my number 2, this is maybe the biggest shocker to me, as I really sat there and went, yeah, I think this is what my number 2 is. It's Web Shooter, a 1-cost upgrade with the item and tech traits. It has uses of 3 web counters. And then when it has the hero resource of Exhaust Web Shooter and remove 1 web counter from here, generate a wild resource. This is a card that has definitely changed as I began to understand the game more and more. There are 2 copies in the deck, or in his kit, and the fact that this, for 1, gets you an extra resource for the next 3 turns. I've gone over this time and time again. This is a well-trodden argument that I've made. But I think that Web Shooters is very, very good because games are not that long. Like, they take you time, they're long. But in terms of turns, they're not that long. And so this might come into play, and it might give you an extra resource for half of the game, or 2/3 of the game. If you get both of them, it's probably giving you an extra resource at all points in the game. You just get to do that. And I think that it is very good. I think that it's not the best card in the game, but I think that it's definitely, in terms of core set cards, risen up in popularity for me so much. Just as I began to learn the game more, I began to realize how much more valuable it is, because it reads like, oh, okay, so I'm getting a wild resource for 3 turns. In your mind, you go, oh, but like a game's like 9 or 10 or 12 turns long, and it really isn't. It's like 6 or 7 most games. If you really stop and think about, like, you're playing multiplayer, yes, it took 2 hours, but you didn't actually take that many turns. You did a lot of stuff. Maybe you sifted through your deck, but you didn't actually like play that many turns. And so this is a upgrade that provides you with a resource that actually, you can look at something like God of Thunder that just generates you a hero resource on the regular and go, oh, that's so much better, even though it costs 2. But it's like, yeah, but they kind of both do the same thing, and they both kind of provide the same amount of resources. You might end up needing God of Thunder, and it might end up giving you 5 or 6 resources over the course of the game, but it might not. And that's kind of my main selling point for Web Shooters, is I think that it actually just fits into the curve of the game really, really well, and is going to do you a lot of good. Let's move to my number 1, which is another one that I kind of hemmed and hawed about. But then as I thought about it, I thought about its comparison to other cards in other waves. And I was like, no, this is like one of my favorite effects. So we have, out of Captain Marvel's kit, we have Energy Channel, a 0-cost upgrade superpower, max 1 per player, which is something important that I have myself made the mistake of. Hero action, spend X energy resources, put X energy counters here. Hero action again. Well, no, not again, just general. That first one was just an action. Hero action. Attack, discard energy channel, deal 2 damage to an enemy to a maximum of 10 for each energy counter here. This just comes down, and over the course of a couple turns, you just build up 5 energy counters on it, and then you just deal 10 damage. And then you put down the other copy, you build some more energy over the course of the game. She has her resource in her kit, I believe, generates 3 energy resources. So you can just drop that. She's like, okay, so I'm not going to do something in this turn. I'm just going to do this to build up this. Like, Bishop has something very similar to this. I think it has the same cap. I could be wrong. Of 10. Maybe it has the cap of 12. Maybe it doesn't have a cap at all. I think it does, though. It just, out of nowhere, just ends the game. And I know that can be anticlimactic. Like, all of a sudden, you're just like, oh, I guess we're going to win because, like, we can't lose this coming turn, and we just need to deal 17 damage, and we have 20 damage on the table. And that can be a little bit disheartening. But when you get to, like, just on the turns where you draw this at the end of your turn, and you go, oh, I've got Energy Channel, and I've got 3 cards that have energy resources on them, I can just deal 6 damage next turn. So on top of everything else that's going on, like, oh, well, we just cracked the game. That can be really fun. And this just always stood out to me. Like, every time I play it, I always have a good time. It always feels really like a climactic moment, even if in all honesty, from the outside perspective, it is kind of taking the air out of the tires. I just enjoy this card. I think it is so stupendous. I'm so happy to play it every time that I do. And again, I have so much more respect for She-Hulk and Captain Marvel than I did when I started the game. I think both heroes have just gained in popularity for me as I've learned the game, and that's why they have showings, whether it be a lot of cards like She-Hulk or has a lot of high-ranking cards like Captain Marvel. Wow, you made it all the way to the end. Thank you so much for clocking in and probably watching this over multiple different days. I love this idea. I want to try to collect these top 10 lists into more omnibuy in the future. If you have any ideas of themes or anything, just let me know. I can already think of at least one other one, but I hope you're having a great day. I'll see you in the next one, in the next video of some kind. But remember, you're doing great. Keep it up.